Hello, guys. It's me. I'm back with another live, and I heard that Dak Prescott, he has an accuser. He was actually the first to bring forth a suit against the accuser for extortion. After he files the suit, she, the next day, files a police report about the alleged incident, which took place in 2017. I started digging into this, and I'm like, what better could I do than start a live chat and have you guys unravel it all with me? So we're going to go into this. I have some background, but a lot of it is going to be, the details are going to be a blind read for me. We're going to look at the details together and see what you think. I have a top level summary that we're going to start with just so you can get some quick facts or quick stories, quick coverage, quick reporting on what's going on. And I see Barbara's here, so thanks so much for becoming a member. I see you're using the peach sticker. Which I love. So if you're a member, you get Mario Kart emojis that you can use. We're going to start with the filing that Dak Prescott made on Monday of this week. So much has happened this week. We're going to read this little intro here and then jump right to the factual allegations. Again, this is Dak Prescott filing a lawsuit against his accuser, Victoria Shores. This is the first complaint being filed, but it's in response to a letter that Victoria Shores sent him in January of this year saying, hey, if you don't give me $100 million, I'm going to go public with my claims against you. So that's how we get to this filing right here, this complaint. Let's see what it says. So it comes now, they're saying that Dak Prescott is bringing this action not just against Victoria Shores, but also her two attorneys. If you want to put some faces to the name, we have an interview that we might be able to look at. Let me know if you guys want to go through that. It's 30 minutes long. It's an interview with the accuser, although she's anonymous. Well, she's not anonymous, but she's masked. There's an interview with her attorneys. These are her attorneys here on the screen. And then we get an interview with both of Dak Prescott's attorneys. So if you guys want to take a look at that, we can do that after we look at this filing. But this filing here is going after not just Victoria Shores, but her attorneys. This case arises out of a blatant attempt by Victoria Shores and her legal team to extort plaintiff Dak Prescott by weaponizing patently false, yet heinous essay allegations. YouTube's gonna hate me already, with no basis in reality. Consider the following excerpt from defendant's extortionary letter. We're getting bold already. Attached here too as Exhibit A. It says sensitive and identifying information has been redacted. So do we actually have Exhibit A? And it's just redacted? Oh, we have the letter. All right, we're going to start reading the letter. So this is the letter on January 16th. Now, this is litigation. This is an act of litigation. When you're sending a letter like this. So January 16th, this is what's starting everything that's happening this week with Dak Prescott. From the law office of Bethel, I don't know how to say that last name, Zahi. Dear Mr. Prescott, our law firm has been retained to represent Victoria Bailey Shores, hereinafter referred to as Miss Shores, for injuries she sustained as a result of an SA committed by you on or about February 2nd, 2017. You and Miss Shores became acquainted through her employment and exchanged information. We're going to find out that they met at a strip club. Communication ensued between you both via Snapchat, and you invited her to hang out. Thereafter, on or about February 2nd, 2017, you and Miss Shores, along with two members of your entourage and a couple additional female friends, met at blank. So there's actually reports that this is ecstasy, like it's spelled with the letter XTC, Cabaret, is where this alleged incident took place. So it's redacted here at the time of the filing, but now that's publicly known. At some point, you, Miss Shores, along with the two members of your entourage, entered your black SUV-style vehicle. You directed Miss Shores to the furthest back row so you could all head to somewhere else that they're going. On the ride to that place, you exposed your genitalia. Miss Shores did not want to engage in sexual intercourse and made sure to verbalize her wishes. Afterwards, the car came to a stop at your destination. Once this occurred, everyone got out of the car except you, and you further signaled to one of your entourage members to leave you and Miss Shores alone. At this point, you used physical force and essayed Miss Shores by penetrating her against her consent. Miss Shores has had to live with the pain and trauma for 7 years. It affected her relationship with her fiancé and her everyday existence so much that she had to attend therapy and counseling and will require future therapy and counseling. She suffered mental anguish that is unimaginable dealing with the trauma of being an SA victim. Despite the tragic events, she's willing to forgo all of this in this letter that they're sending directly to Dak Prescott. This is not a complaint through a court. This is a letter that is going to Dak Prescott in January of this year. Despite all of this that we just said, she's willing to forgo pursuing criminal charges, along with disclosing this information to the public, in exchange for compensating her for the mental anguish she has suffered. Ms. Shore's damages are valued at the sum of $100 million. You have until February 16th, 2024 to respond to this demand letter. To discuss this matter, please have your attorneys reach out to us, and then there's the emails provided. I'm not sure why that's, well, I guess it's shorthand, but probably Beth and Bethel and Joel. I guess they have to redact it as like policy, right? Or courtesy. Please, but we can kind of guess that this is probably what's before the beginning of those emails. Please direct all communications exclusively to our office. Don't tell anybody else that we sent you this letter. We hope to resolve this matter privately and amicably and look forward to working with you. So, again, this goes to Dak Prescott. On January 16th, they give him 30 days to respond to this demand letter, saying, if you give us $100 million, we'll forgo pursuing criminal charges from something that happened 7 years ago and maybe outside the statute of limitations, and we also won't go public with the information. No public disclosure, as long as you privately give us $100 million. So, this is the exhibit here. We're going to go back to this lawsuit because this is the first complaint filed. There's no police action at this point, no report made to the police. There's no complaints or lawsuits filed yet. The first lawsuit is coming from Dak Prescott in response to this letter. This was filed on Monday. We read the beginning already, but we just read the exhibit here. And then it continues on, quoting this thing that we just read. You're extorting us. You said, quote, Ms. Shores is willing to forgo pursuing criminal charges along with disclosing this information to the public in exchange for compensating her for the mental anguish she has suffered. Ms. Shore's damages are valued at the sum of the $100 million. That's why we have extortionary letter in bold. 2. SA is a despicable crime that no person should ever endure. Mr. Prescott, a new father to his baby girl, has great empathy for survivors survivors of SA, and believes fervently that all perpetrators of such crime should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. With that said, Mr. Prescott has never engaged in any non-consensual sexual behavior with anybody. Indeed, defendants' false claims in this regard undermine the courage of actual sexual assault survivors everywhere, as well as the legitimacy of the horrific traumas they have endured. So they go into some background. They're about to go into saying here, at the height of Prescott's success, the defendant and her legal team are sending us this campaign of extortion and defamation, threatening to go public with a completely fabricated story. Completely fabricated story of SA from nearly a decade ago and demanding that $100 million in exchange for silence. These are horrible lies. They threaten to destroy the legitimacy of this great man and cost him tens of millions of dollars. But the defendant's conduct is also criminal. So they're going to allege, what they're saying here, what this means is, it's not just that you're defaming us, defaming Dak Prescott. It's criminal that you would try to extort someone in this way. So as such, Mr. Prescott has reported defendants' criminal actions to the appropriate authorities and will continue to cooperate fully in their investigation. Now, we might see it if we pull up an article and read any of their summaries, but he went and filed a police report in Prosper. So Prosper Police Department is where there's an open investigation currently into this extortion claim against Victoria Shores and the attorneys. So Dak Prescott is cooperating with that investigation. Now, yeah, and I swear to God, that's what I was thinking when I saw it. Okay, so Barbara says, I swear to God, Dr. Evil came up with that number. As soon as I saw the number, I had the same thought, and I was like, oh my God, I need a live chat for this. I need to see what the people think. So, at least Ghost doing the Mario Kart. But yeah, that number very much Dr. Evil, Austin Power vibes. So, we're going to find out that with Prescott having to open this case to bring forth the truth to the light, defend his new family, and promote our society's collective progress in support of legitimate survivors of SA, he's got to bring this lawsuit forward. As a show of support for legitimate survivors of SA, Mr. Prescott has committed to donating any and all recovery obtained as a result of this lawsuit to the Joyful Heart Foundation, whose vision is a world free of SA, DV, and child abuse. So they're going to go into some background on the parties. The attorneys are living in Texas, and Victoria Shores is living in Texas. They're saying that, plaintiff lives in Collin County, Texas. They're all Texas residents. And then this is where we get that Dak is seeking monetary relief in excess of $1 million, including damages of any kind, attorney's fees, cost of court, pre- and post-judgment interest, and any other penalties. And he's saying that anything that he gets as relief for himself, he's going to donate to that. Let me say the name so we can, I think it'd be good to say the name and not just say that charity. Joyful Heart Foundation. So that's where he plans to donate anything he may receive as a result of this lawsuit. He's going to give it to the Joyful Heart Foundation. Now, factual background. This is where we're going to get into, what are the background facts that are our basis for saying you try to extort Dak Prescott and you're defaming him. It's defamation per se, right? So defamation per se means, it's not just sticks and stones and it's your decision whether or not you let those words hurt you. But defamation per se, it's assumed. You don't even need to prove that whatever's being said, that thing that's being said that you're considering defamation per se, it's just inherently injurious. It's bad enough that there's no way it's not injurious to your reputation. So if I just say, you look funny, well, you can't say that that's defamation per se. You're going to have to prove that someone saying that is something that could damage your reputation. But if I say, hey, you committed a crime, you did this terrible, unfathomable thing, well, people hearing that are going to automatically, your reputation's automatically going to be injured. So we're going to hear the factual background here for why Dak Prescott is suing Victoria Shores for defamation per se and extortion. So on or around February 13th, 2024, Mr. Prescott's representatives received correspondence from defendants via her counsel, which falsely accused Mr. Prescott of SA and demanding the $100 million. We're going to keep seeing this number, I feel like, in exchange for foregoing pressing criminal charges and disclosing the allegations to the public. And we looked through at that exhibit. If you're jumping in late, we go through this extortion letter at the beginning. And I'm also going to drop a link to these documents once the stream ends and I can get in there and edit it. Bizarrely, the correspondence was addressed to a third party at Mississippi State University, where Prescott attended college. Is it still in there? Oh. Delivered electronic mail to something at athletics.msstate.edu. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Let's see. Factual allegations. The alleged assault occurred on or about February 2nd, 2017, following the end of Mr. Prescott's rookie season in the NFL as the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. At the time of the alleged assault, Mr. Prescott was single, and in fact, the timeline of events and defendant Shore's actions in the 7 years, bolded, since the alleged assaults are consistent with being involved with only consensual actions with Mr. Prescott. The fact that Mr. Prescott did not hear a single negative thing about the supposed interaction from nearly a decade ago is truly telling of the defendant's motives. After receiving the aforementioned correspondence, counsel for Mr. Prescott reached out to confer with the defendant Shore's counsel to confer on the matter, as surely she would not so blatantly attempt to extort a highly successful NFL quarterback at the height of his career. But defendants, because remember the attorneys are defendants of this lawsuit, they're named, but defendants Bethel and Joel confirmed their motives when they confirmed on a phone call that 1. All civil causes of action have expired, and 2. The sole reason for their demand of $100 million from Mr. Prescott was to forego criminal charges and for not making the alleged assault public. So, they're going for the defamation and slander, defamation per se, and then also the civil extortion and duress. And we're also going to see there's a criminal investigation going on in, what was it? What was the police department? Prosper Police Department is currently investigating criminal complaint into this extortion for Dak Prescott against Victoria Shores. So, and then business disparagement is one. Tortious interference with current and or prospective business relations, because he's under contract negotiations right now with the Cowboys. It seems like they feel like this stuff is not going to affect how they negotiate these contracts. They've already spoken and kind of made a decision on they're standing 10 toes down on what they were going to do anyway with his contract. So, and, shout out to that, right? If you believe someone's innocent, if you don't think there's merits to something, I think it's really nice that somebody that isn't in a YouTube chat with us, someone that's on a big stage, the Cowboys, Jerry Jones, are kind of like, yeah, we're going to pursue the contract negotiations as if this wasn't even relevant. If you think someone's innocent, I think that's the kind of advocacy that we need, truth be told. If you don't think there's merits, if there's no evidence, outwardly support the person that's being falsely accused. That's where I stand. And then civil conspiracy, and that's going to be because there's 3 of them. So, because there's the accuser and then there's the 2 attorneys. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, and then they're going to lay out their damages here. So I'm going to link to this if you want to get into the details. If the judge wants us to go forward to trial, plaintiff is asking for a jury trial. And then he's asking for reliefs, and again, he plans to donate it to the Joyful Heart Fund or Foundation. I'm so bad with names. Let me just put this so I can find it right away. Joyful Heart Foundation. And that is an organization that works to, try to prevent and reduce SA, DV, and child abuse. So shout out to them. And then if we go over... So what do you guys think happens after this was filed on Monday? If you're joining late, we just looked at this is the extortion the lawsuit filed in response to a January extortion letter involving a alleged incident that took place in February of 2017. So in January of this year, Dak Prescott receives this letter. We'll go look at it again. Well, Dak Prescott and his attorneys and the Mississippi State receive this letter that's saying, hey, if you give us $100 million, we won't say anything about this thing that we're saying happened on February 2nd, 2017. So the day after Dak files this lawsuit saying you're defaming me and extorting me, we have a police complaint filed by Victoria Shores in Dallas County. So Dallas is now investigating what they're calling an open SA inquiry over an alleged incident that took place on February 2nd, 2017 in the parking lot of XTC Cabaret. So she didn't file it until she got hit with the extortion suit. Now, that's interesting because now your complaint, it could go both ways. Is it a situation where you were afraid to come and report, but now you're finally deciding to report? Or is it a situation where someone's coming after you for something and they're saying you're trying to extort them, and if you go and make this criminal complaint, it could say, well, I'm not extorting you. Look, I'm taking other action. I think there should be justice, not just monetary compensation to myself. So one day after this lawsuit is filed, we get a criminal complaint from Victoria Shores against Dak Prescott. Now, we have some coverage from Pro Football Talk. They did an interview. And it's 15 minutes. I'll link to this as well if you want to watch the whole thing. But they did do some pull quotes here that I thought were interesting from Victoria Shores attorneys, who are also named defendants in the extortion lawsuit. So, right after they file the complaint, they ask the attorneys, well, was a criminal complaint actually made? And the attorneys say, yeah, but we don't want to go too much into that. But yeah, we're in the middle of that process. Dak Prescott's attorney put us on the defensive when our client is the victim. So they're saying, hey, they went and filed this extortion case and named us in it. And, oh yeah, we don't want to go too much into this criminal complaint, but we're in that process. And they just put us on the defensive. So it's clear they didn't expect this type of reaction from Dak Prescott. They didn't expect to see this extortion lawsuit filed in response to their demand for $100 million. We get a fuller quote here from Victoria Shore's attorneys, who are now her co-defendants. Yesterday, we were kind of blindsided when we saw they filed an extortion lawsuit, but we wanted to set the record straight that there was nothing extortionist about what happened. Hold on, let me make this bigger because that's really small on the screen. Cool, so we're here. We sent that demand letter, and that is, there's nothing out of the ordinary in that. It's standard practice in civil cases in the legal profession. But what we don't want is them to have this narrative of extortion, because this is what they want, right? They wanted to preemptively strike so they can control the narrative. But there's nothing extortionist about what occurred. So then, Pro Football Talk asks a question, well, doesn't $100 million seem like a pretty high opening settlement demand? Well, we stand very firmly behind that. Now, do we believe that the case could have potentially settled for $100 million? No, but that's just standard practice. You know, you send high numbers. And also on our case, Grape case, so there's an old saying with wrongful death cases, you know, how do you value a dead body, right? And as to grape, it's the same way to us. How do you put a value on a grape? It's funny to substitute that word. It's like changing the meaning. But you guys know what I mean. I'm trying just not to piss off YouTube. There is the trauma, and the damages that come from that are so infinitely high. There's not a number that could ever make her whole. So the $100 million is not, in our opinion, an outrageous number. Now, this is a very credible person. The facts of the story are very consistent with what she's saying. The attorneys also say during conversations with Prescott's counsel that the defense shifted from Prescott saying he didn't know Shores to Prescott claiming that any contact was consensual. He kept changing his story. First he said he didn't know her, and now he's saying it's consensual. Do you think that's incriminating? If someone doesn't know someone at first, but then they're like, well, yeah, but it was consensual. His counsel at first said he didn't know her. Then he said, well, he wants more information to remember. So, there's an update there. There's also an ESPN article that has some quotes from Prescott's attorney. So we're going to look at Levi McCathern. He's questioning the timing of the woman going to the police. Because she goes to the police not because she decides after 7 years she wants to have some type of justice for what she says happens to her. But she goes to the police after an extortion claim is filed against her and her attorneys that sent an extortion letter in January of this year. So, his attorney in this ESPN article, Levi McCathern, says, hey, we're questioning that timing. Doesn't make sense. Clearly, this is a quote, clearly they think that this will somehow mitigate their criminal responsibility for attempting this illegal shakedown. McCathern then goes on to say, it won't, and it is a true disservice to the real survivors. We look forward to working with all law enforcement in reaching a just conclusion to this case. So, and then I think there might have been one more quote here. It's just quoting the case that we just looked at, the lawsuit we just looked at. And then from Zahi, the attorneys, and we don't know which one. It always just says the last name. I don't know if this is Beth or Joel. But they said in a statement Monday night after this lawsuit was filed, we stand by the truth. Dak and his lawyers are trying to be bullies and play hardball and victim blame. We're not afraid of the truth. Dak needs to be held accountable for his behavior. We're not afraid of him or his legal team. And then asked about the allegations against Prescott on Thursday, Cowboys executive president Stephen Jones said this case would not impact contract talks with the quarterback. We visited with Dak about the allegations, and it's certainly a legal matter, so it's something we can't comment on. But they said it's not going to affect contract talks with the quarterback. Now, where we get to a really interesting point is we have this interview. And I'm going to put it on extra speed here, so keep that in mind. Like when we're watching it, that's not the exact demeanor that it's being delivered, right? It's going to be sped up, and maybe that could change the way something sounds. But it's just for efficiency of getting through it. But we have Victoria Shores, who's not showing her identity here. We have her two attorneys. And then we have, separately in separate interviews, two different attorneys that are representing Dak Prescott. Before we jump into that, I'm just going to see. I'm assuming you guys probably want to see an interview with TMZ. No TMZ interview here. And then GA. Hey, GA. Haven't seen you in a bit. Jerry using this to his benefit. You mean Jerry Jones? Yeah, I just need a doctor, something that can just stay on my face doing the Dr. Evil every time I read that $100 million. And I think, so Ghost, this is a good point. No celebrity's safe, right? Sometimes it seems like when these contracts are coming forward, there's going to be big money negotiations. There's that opportunity for impact. And it seems like there's a coincidence around those times. But the coincidence doesn't necessarily mean someone's coming forward and not telling the truth. We have to look at other indicators to figure that out, right? But no celebrity's safe. You can tell when we're falling on hard times when everyone is suing famous people for money because they see others getting away doing it. And the first thing I thought of was Cassie with Diddy kind of sent the same letter. And then she files a suit against him and his companies and some other staff members. She named it was like 21 entities named in that suit. There's a bunch of John and Jane Does in case new things were discovered during discovery. And as soon as she filed that lawsuit, everyone says that was like the fastest they've seen someone just like pay it right away. And it seems like there's been more of that where people are coming forward and suing for these big numbers, and a lot more people, we didn't see it yet. But here it seems like she's just accusing Dak. But there's been other cases recently, Tyreek Hill's one of them, where he's being sued, but they're also well, not Tyreek Hill, I'm confusing cases. The Scottie Pippen case, where they're also suing the Chicago Bulls for a allegation of something that happened between Scottie and his brother Carl and the accuser, but they're suing the Chicago Bulls and Larsa Pippen as well. So Cassie had the kind of like, I don't know if it's like a new thing. People are saying, let's just tack on the entities while we do this. So no celebrity and their associated organizations seem to be safe. Oh, and then GA, you're a Cowboys fan. You say, leave my quarterback alone, lock her up. No. So there's actually something I was looking at. Joel Zahe, someone found like his old Facebook posts where he's also a Cowboys fan, but he can't stand Dak Prescott. And he has like Facebook posts where he's saying like, why won't they hold Dak Prescott accountable? He sucks. Like he keeps losing, something to that effect. So people already went and found that Victoria Shore's attorney is not a Dak Prescott fan. And Ghost is thinking it's extortion for sure. Yeah, they bolded it. They made sure to bold that. Legal extortion 101. And then, let's see. We'll get over to this video. Watch it in some pieces. I haven't watched it, so I don't know if it's going to be, all that telling. I don't know how many details are going to be in it.
Can you, I know I read the demand letter, but I was hoping you could just sort of walk me through in your
Let me know if you can hear this. This is quiet and it's all the way up.
Yeah, so I was invited out to get some drinks in this, shopping center's kind of like bar restaurant, and I did met up with them. There were some other people there, and we decided, kind of continue the night, go somewhere else. Wasn't really sure where we were going, and I thought actually some more people were coming with me. These girls that were there, but it turned out that they were not coming with us. And got in the car. We were on our way to Dallas from Plano, and pretty much when we got to our destination, we parked. The people who were in the car, besides me and him, got out the car. It was just me and him in the car, in this SUV Tahoe. We were actually in the third row, and yeah, that's where it happened, in the parking lot of our destination that we were going to.
Obviously, only within the bounds with which you're comfortable, but can you tell me what exactly happened?
So it was.
So they're saying, well, I guess she's going to explain more.
We were in the third row. I was on the inside. He was on the outside, so I couldn't get out. He had a driver with him. There was two friends. One of the friends were in the middle. The other friend was in the passenger seat. Everybody got out, and the friend in the middle went around the car to open the door to let us out. But I saw him gesture, kind of with his hand, like to not touch the door, not let us out, and then he just kind of walked off. And he just, kind of made his move, started kissing on the side of me, kind of on my cheek and on my neck. And I was, when he did the gesture, my heart kind of dropped. I didn't expect that. I didn't, you kind of, it's like, but you don't want to believe it, what could happen. So I was kind of laughing it off at first, like, like, no, and kind of turning my body away from him. But I'm in the small back seat, like it's just us two. He's a big guy.
All right, so they are in the back seat while this is happening. Everyone gets out of the car in the parking lot, because in the extortion letter, it was kind of vague. It was like, give us some time, and then it they were kind of vague about how it happened. They were like, everyone got out of the car and Dak Prescott was in the car. But they didn't really specify a extortion letter. It was Dak Prescott and her in the back seat. They just kind of left like a vague description in that letter. But here, this is happening. They're saying it's in the back of the seat. They're in the third row of this SUV in the back. Everyone else gets out. And this is where something non-consensual is about to happen. And yeah, isn't it sped up? Yeah, so you're referring probably the ums. Let's watch the next bit on a slower speed just to get a feel for how it's being said. And then yeah, where's the driver? Was his head forward? Maybe we'll find out, but I have the same question.
And he just, when I turned kind of towards him, I think that's when he thought that maybe I gestured something, and he just kind of pushed me back, and I just froze.
Do you remember, did he say something? Did you say something? What can you tell me about that moment, the interaction?
He didn't say anything, no. I froze, and, you know, he pulls my pants down, and pants weren't even all the way, you know, off of my legs, so it's just an awkward position, and it's just tight, and it was heavy, and yeah, that's what happened.
I know this happened several years ago, but talk
It did.
about it now. How do you feel?
It's a lot because I suppressed it. You know, I blamed myself for a while. You know, just in the line of work that I was in, I felt like I was going to be judged, and you know, he is who he is. I mean, look what's happened.
So I don't think they said that she was an employee of XTC Cabaret. I think they just said it happened after they had met there or had been there with a bunch of friends. They met there, their friends group collided, they had plans to also go somewhere else, to another place. But once they get there, they start to get out of the car, and I guess just the two of them end up in this car, and she doesn't want to be in that car. So I don't know, when she just said that comment about, I didn't want to, you know, I thought my line of work would be an issue. Maybe that's her saying that she was an employee there where they ended up meeting. So not sure on that. But yeah, that was normal speed that we just watched that last couple, like, minute or so. We'll speed it back up. I think I had on
Now I didn't
175
have the support back
originally.
then that I have today, and this is exactly what I was afraid was going to happen. That it was going to be turned around on me. That nobody was going to believe me. That I, you know, lied, and which is not the case at all. I don't like attention. I'm not on social media. I'm very reserved. I didn't tell anybody because, you know, I didn't have the support back then, just with my family dynamic, and I'm not very good at like being vulnerable and being looked as the weak person. So I'm always strong. I'm always, you know, stay strong, and everybody looks at me as a strong person, and I feel like people would be even shocked that this happened, that maybe I allowed it, or they blame me because, you know, I'm a girl. Why do you hang out? Like, why did you even agree to go out with him? Like, I didn't.
So I think shame like that is real, but I don't think having real shame about something like that necessarily means that something that happened wasn't consensual. It's not definitive. But I do think there's shame where people could consent and then they realize, you know, maybe I just did something in the backseat of an SUV, and we don't know what happens after this yet, but maybe they go their separate ways and that's it. And you realize, like, I just did that. And then genuine shame comes over you. And then it can be very compelling when you see an interview like this, because I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, it seems like she has kind of body movements that are going with real emotions. What do I make of that? But you have to zoom out sometimes and remember, this is an accusation of criminal behavior of someone. And my stance is, we gotta look at the credibility of it. We gotta look at the facts. We gotta look at what's being said. And all we have is that they were in the back seat, this third seat of the SUV. We haven't heard that anyone else is a witness to this. We just know that she says she got therapy and counseling later on to deal with this because she apparently suppressed it. But getting therapy for something doesn't necessarily prove something happened. And we don't actually have proof that she's going to therapy or counseling specifically because of this. She's saying that she's strong in this moment, but even with a blacked out figure, my interpretation, regardless of the situation, is she just said she was reserved and shy, but then came out and said she was like strong and was like the leader and always wanted to help people feel strong. And that seems conflicting to me personally.
I was just scared. Like, I was scared of what he could do, and if he could ruin my life. If I got fired from where I was working, like, I don't know him. I don't know what he's capable of, but I know he's a big time football player. And what's happening now is exactly what I was afraid of.
Do you remember what you felt about in that moment?
So, but she was afraid of getting fired from where she was working previously. But she comes forward now and says it's the same thing. It's happening. So is she worried about where she currently works? And this happened during like his rookie
I was shocked.
year, right?
You know,
2017.
You never think about those things until it happens. Or like you say things like, oh, I can never, that could never be me. I would do this. I would fight back and all this stuff. But you don't know until it happens to you and you're put in that position. And the way that your brain just kind of shuts off and like you get scared, or like fear comes over and you can't say anything, you can't do anything, and then you start thinking about all these things that could happen, like, so.
I think this is a dangerous interview. Now, hear me out. If she's telling the truth and she did not, in that moment, she did not want to do anything with him. We have her in this interview saying that nobody said anything. So I think interviews can be dangerous because now this is like a prior statement. So she can't really go and say later on, if this ends up going to some type of trial, this ends up getting litigated, and she tries to say, well, I told him I didn't want to. It wasn't consensual. I told him that. I said to stop. Now, that's rough, because if what she's saying really happened the way she's saying it, and it wasn't consensual, like maybe she was crying when it happened, she gave this interview. She has a statement now that's publicly available where she's saying, I didn't say no. I didn't tell him I didn't want to do something. I didn't say to stop. And then there can be that counter argument, right? Where consent needs to be expressly given. He needs to have asked. He needs to have said, like, hey, are you cool with this? Because she does say he doesn't say anything. But if neither party said anything, then technically neither of them consent. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those weird, I guess there's a legal conversation there too, but it's kind of like a philosophical question where if nobody's there, it's only these two people and both say nothing. Neither expressly give consent. And what do you make of that? But here she is. She can't later say that she said anything because she says here she didn't say anything. I think interviews are dangerous.
At the time.
What is it that's making you emotional right now?
Because, for a long time I did blame myself. I did worry, like, did I do something? Did I say something? And, it's taken a lot to make this step, and it took so long. And so it's just a lot of emotions with it. A lot of emotions is coming with it. It's nice to get it out at the same time, but it's just a lot.
I think when the attorney dropped that statement last night.
So it looks like we had a moment because she had to get herself back together. So it seems like she's having a genuine emotional reaction. We can't like actually see her, but the sounds of it, they take a break or whatever. Those are signs that someone's having emotions on the surface, come to the surface. And I think, goes to saying I agree with the shame after consent. That could be likely here. That seems likely here. I wasn't there, but the evidence has to be presented. The amount of money seems incredulous. I have sympathy for SA victims. And then also that the quote, nobody said anything means there must have been another witness. And I guess we'll see that, right? And nobody said anything. There was also mentions that they had exchanged contact on Snapchat. I'm not sure if that was in the suit that I read or if it was in an article that I had read. So if you didn't hear that, promise you I saw it said somewhere that they exchanged Snapchat because they were going to go to another place together. So I'm wondering, was anything exchanged after this? What was the conversation that night if they continued to communicate? Um, and then yes, that is the stadium behind her. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting when I opened the video, but I'm like, maybe it's just the way this room is set up. But they could have filmed it anyway, right? I guess it's helping to bring darkness to her face, right? Facing her away from outside light. But yeah, that is the Cowboy Stadium behind her. And then yeah, well, he should have known. That is true, the Aziz Ansari story. That was that was one of the first ones where it was like, oh, wait, this could just be someone having like regret after an incompatible encounter. That was the Aziz Ansari story was the kind of a had a like philosophical impact on me reading it, because that's one of the first times I sat there, read through something, and was like, well, wait a minute, is this something that someone should be canceled for? They get home, it gets awkward, nothing ends up really happening, and then someone writes a blog post about it later. Again, totally separate from, it's its own bubble. That's not, doesn't have a bearing on what we're talking about here. But yeah, the Aziz Ansari story was an interesting one. And yeah, ballsy to put that stadium in the background.
Either in that or in the demand letter, I can't remember, but I believe I read those things. What it said was that in that altercation, you made it clear that verbally you did not want to be there. Can you talk to me about that?
Okay, so now in an altercation, you made it clear that you did not want to be there. Can you talk about that? But we heard her say, maybe I'm crazy, but we had her say that she didn't say anything. So is the altercation expanding to be a bigger spans of time, and then something gets said?
Like be there in the car or not want to.
You don't want to engage in any kind of.
Yeah, and so like when I was, because at first, I wasn't trying to make it awkward. I didn't know if he would cause a scene, get out the car, tell me to get out, and because my car was still in Plano, and so at first I was like, just trying to like, no, and then turn my body around, and then I was like, no, and that was it.
So now we're saying something.
I think he took it as a joke or something.
How did you?
This is why I don't think people should do interviews. And honestly, the reporter, the interviewer, set her up there.
Me too.
At my job at the time.
Were you working at a bar as a waitress?
Yes.
I wonder, he has come out as your.
So she was working at the bar as a waitress.
When you heard that, what was your reaction?
Shocking. I didn't know.
Oh, and that's true. A lot of her emotions could be because she just had a lawsuit filed by someone who can probably pay for very good attorneys on the civil side, and then a criminal complaint for extortion. That was all when was this interview? March 13th, that would have been Wednesday. So Monday he files a civil suit and goes to the police, so she probably already knew at this point. So within 48 hours, this interview's taking place of when that extortion lawsuit, the defamation lawsuit, was filed, and then the criminal investigation was opened up in. Why can't I remember the name? Not Provost. I want to say Provost. Prosper. So the Prosper Police Department they open a case looking into extortion by Victoria Shores and her two attorneys. So that could be another reason she's very emotional in this, because it's less than 48 hours apart from that news.
How did it make you feel?
I felt like now, I look like the liar. I look like, I am doing this for just because of it. Like, I feel like, I'm not going to be taken.
Let me pause here. What if the scenario is she's truthful, but these two attorneys say, yeah, just ask for $100 million, girl, it'll be fine. Since she fires out this extortion letter, what they're calling an extortion letter, for this $100 million amount. What if she just trusted her attorneys? And now what she's saying here is, now I look like a liar, I look like I'm asking for too much, I'm not going to be taken seriously now. On one hand, she could be feeling like this because she didn't expect to be called out. She didn't expect Dak Prescott to, you're extorting me, I'm not responding to this letter and giving you $100 million. On the other hand, she could have trusted her attorneys, and her attorneys were like, yeah, we asked for $100 million, we didn't expect to get that much, but that's just what you do. And then now she has to be like, oh my God. Like, that definitely looks grifty. People are going to call me out on YouTube and say that that's a weird number to ask for. It's ballsy. What if she just trusted her attorneys and they put her in a position to ask for that big, huge number? Because she's having a reaction to having a defamation and extortion suit filed against her.
And seriously now, is exactly what I thought back then. And I was genuinely shocked.
This came out yesterday, and already I know that you've been attacked online.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of things have people said to you?
I mean, my address was put out there. You know, they were saying that, you know, I think I saw, you know, this is why it's hard for other victims to come out. And one person said that, you know, I hope he wins if she goes to jail. And so it's just shocking. It's hurtful.
How is it? You said it's hurtful. Talk to me about how did you feel to see that stuff?
I don't know. I feel like, and this is just me speaking personally, it doesn't speak for what she's saying here, but what would hurt me the most if I came forward would be going online and seeing someone say they don't believe me. That would be the first thing. How do you feel attacked? Like, what are the things that you're saying? Like, these things that are hurting you. If someone gave me, like, specific threats, I might mention that first. Like, someone's writing to me, giving me specific details of how they're going to come to my house and find me or whatever. I might say that first. But otherwise, it would just be a general, like, overwhelm of, like, people don't believe me. So.
Because if you knew me, you would know this is not my character. So it's kind of embarrassing, to be honest, but I didn't ask for that. I didn't ask for that to happen to me.
I don't think anybody, and I'm sure there's trolls on the internet, but I think most reasonable people would just be, you know, we're not looking at you saying it's embarrassing if this happened to you. We just might think it's embarrassing if you're asking boldly for $100 million without anything to back it. That's an embarrassing thing to do. That's something that's going to kind of inherently and necessarily bring someone humiliation. But if something really happened to you and you have the facts to back it, I don't think embarrassment is, a reasonable person is not going to try to humiliate you about it. I don't think that's, I'm sure there's trolls out there doing, like, extreme things, right? There always are. Especially this is sports, right? So there probably is some rabid Cowboys fan out there. Shout out to you guys if you're in the chat. When did this happen? So this was allegedly something that happened on February 2nd, 2017. And then, so Barbara says it's called negotiating, talking about, you know, that letter laying out 100 million to start. A number that big means you must have so much proof. It's better, it's better he pay than lose it all, like Jonathan Majors. Now, Diddy has big money too. And what was the Cassie suit? That was like 32 million that she was asking for. And I don't think we know the settlement amount. What was her lawsuit? She did give, I think it was like 30 million, 31 million, 32 million. And Diddy has big money too. Dak Prescott has big money too. This is like 7-figure or approaching. This is big money, 7, 8, 9-figure that we're talking about. So, well, my point is like 100 million is kind of a big money because Cassie has years to work with, or she, you know. But yeah, that was just some food for thought. They said they asked for Dr. Evil money.
You still think about it?
Yeah, I have.
What is it you're feeling right now?
Just a lot of emotions.
Can you talk to me about the effect that night has had on your life?
I don't know if I like that answer. Someone asks you how you're feeling right now. You say, take a long pause and say just a lot of emotions. That sounds like what people would find to be understandable. You probably could be feeling a lot of emotions if you have to go through this. But if you can't think of an answer and you have to hold yourself back and take a moment of pause, my idea would be maybe your gut instinct was to say, hey, I actually feel guilt or shame. But you know you can't come out and say that. on an interview, so you got to just sit there and think of something better to say.
In the last 7 years?
Yeah. Afterwards, I just kind of, like I said, I blamed myself for a while. I, kind of started to drink more, and I did depend on alcohol for a while after that. I gained, my temper was real high. I got into a relationship, and I noticed that, I would take things out on my relationship on him. I didn't like to be touched for a while, and it would be off and on, just spurts of anger and not wanting to be touched, and so.
I suspect your attorneys have explained to you that the statute of limitations would pass that point to file a civil lawsuit.
Yeah.
Are you interested in trying to pursue criminal charges against Dak?
Yeah.
So she has now, since the time of this interview, moved to bring forth a police complaint with the Dallas Police Department, and they are now investigating an SA claim from February 2nd, 2017.
Is that something you think you will do?
Yes.
And why is that important to you?
Because it's doing something,
So she did this interview. In other words, she did this interview before she went and filed that police report. So she's already speaking here with the news, but still didn't file a police report.
I've been silent for all these years, and taking it. I don't know if you noticed, but anywhere you go, you see him. He's in grocery stores, he's on ads, he's in the gas stations, and so I've endured, I think enough. I've built a closer relationship to God, and I started going to church, and I started becoming more comfortable in being vulnerable, and this was the biggest step to do, and to get right with myself, and this is something that I felt like I needed to do.
It's part of the healing process.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that's something that folks probably ask you, why now?
Why now? Yeah.
Is that it? Did you just feel like you're in a place where you're strong enough to? And
Yeah, it's taken a while. It's it was hard to talk about it for.
But you didn't want to do this. You didn't want to do this. You're here because on Monday, Dak fired the first lawsuit against you. So these answers, this is why you shouldn't do interviews, because that's where it doesn't make sense. You didn't want to come forward because your demand letter was demanding to keep it private. You didn't want to come forward. You stated in that letter that your attorneys wrote and prepared and delivered to Dak and his attorneys. You stated in that letter you don't want to have to come forward about this. But now that an extortion suit is filed against you and police charges, a police complaint is made against you, and the police start investigating you, and Prosper Police Department is investigating you for extortion. You do this interview, and then you go and file criminal charges because it's past the statute of limitation on the civil part. So when you send the demand letter, you're not ready to come forward. And then you get an extortion lawsuit on Monday of this week. On Wednesday, you're doing this interview, and that's when you go and file this police complaint. Or maybe this was recorded on Tuesday, right? This could have been recorded the day before it was published, because it's nice and edited. So maybe this was recorded on, let's see if she says. Yeah, so she probably recorded this interview on the night of the 11th because it's dark, or the 12th, and then she went and filed in the Dallas Police Department because she's obviously in Dallas in this picture. But she did the interview first. And if this goes to trial, they're going to ask her about all of this. You said in this interview you were ready to talk about it, but your demand letter says you don't want to talk about it. And then you talk to the news before you actually go and file a police complaint. This is not legal advice, but guys, common sense. You like interviews like this. If you end up going to trial and the attorneys on the opposing side have two cents, they're gonna pick and pry at all of this.
For years and years, it was even hard to think about it. But yes, I want to take control back over my life, back over, I don't want to be that angry person. I don't want to be just miserable. And so I wanted to do something about it.
one of the things Dak's lawyers said, which I wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to, is they say that, after the incident, you spent, more of the night with him and his friends, and they, you saw him again afterward, and things were amicable. And so that's something they've brought up. I wanted to give you a chance to respond to that.
Well, yeah, so my car
Wait,
was
hold on.
at the bar, and was at the...
And afterward, and things were amicable. And so
Oh,
that's
things were
something-
amicable. I thought she said become a couple.
Well, yeah, so my car was at the bar, and when we were at our destination, I actually ran into a friend of mine, and I told her to come back with me. So whenever I was walking around him, he held my hand. So it's not like I could just run away or walk away. So I saw my friend, I said, come back with me, and
Hold on. So, on the chance that someone that was there that night is going to come and testify, well, did you see them holding hands? Yeah, they were holding hands. She's going to say, well, that was only happening because I was afraid to not hold his hand the whole night, the rest of the night, throughout the night. That's a long... Let's listen to that again.
Whenever I was walking around him, he held my hand. So it's not like I could just run away or walk away.
Whenever I was walking around him, he had my hand. Whenever I was walking around him implies like you're moving, you're out, you're hanging out, you're shuffling back and forth. And when you run up, you cozy up and you go, ooh, ah. It's not the same wording as when you say whenever I was walking around him. There's movement. You're not constantly grasped to each other. If someone was controlling you and you couldn't get away, you'd be holding hands the whole time. Not just when you weaved in and out, back and forth with each other. This is why you shouldn't do interviews. Hey, Pam. Pam, this is Dak Prescott's accuser, who says that an incident took place in the back of an SUV after they left a strip club in Plano where she worked. She was a bartender waitress at a strip club, Ecstasy Cabaret in Plano, Texas. It was Dak Prescott's rookie year. They get into a black SUV. She leaves her car behind. There's friends from both sides, Dak's people and some of her people, and they go somewhere else to go continue on partying for the night. And she says when we get there, everybody gets out of the car. And if you're not working and you want to come up, I'll drop a link if you want to jump in. But we're looking at her. She gives this interview. And if you just caught what I said, she's giving this interview. She sends a demand letter in January to Dak Prescott saying she wants $100 million because I don't want to go talk about this publicly. Dak hits her with a lawsuit saying this is extortion and defamation. So, yeah. That was Monday he files this lawsuit. Monday night or Tuesday, she does this interview and goes to the police station after this interview at some point and files charges with the police department because the civil statute of limitations is up. So she goes to the Dallas Police Department and files these charges. But she did this interview first. And she's saying some things in here that if this goes to some type of trial, she's going to be pressed on the things she's saying here. Like, yeah. Barbara invokes Pam's name and Pam appears. Well, thank you, Barbara. I am glad Pam is here because of your invocation. But that's who we're watching now.
So I saw my friend, I said, come back with me and take me to get my car. So we got in the car, same setup pretty much. He led me to the back, the very back, and he was pretty intoxicated, so he actually fell asleep. And we went all the way back to his house. She followed us, and I told her to
So they go back
away.
in the SUV and go back into the
So I saw my friend, I
back
said,
seat.
come back with me and take me to get my car. So we got in the car, same setup pretty much. He led me to the back, the very back, and he was pretty
Why didn't you
intoxicated, so he
drive
actually
with your
fell asleep.
friend?
And we went all the way back to his house.
Hold on, I gotta
Whenever
watch this
I was
again.
walking around him, he held my hand. So it's not like I could just run away or walk away. So I saw my friend, I said, come back with me and take me to get my car. So we got in the car, same setup pretty much. He led me to the back, the very back, and he was pretty intoxicated, so he actually fell asleep. And we went all the way back to his house. She followed us, and I told her to take me to my car.
Why didn't you go in the car with your friend? You go back to his house and have your friend follow in her car. He falls asleep. So you get to his house and he's falling asleep because he's intoxicated. And you haven't mentioned so far that you're intoxicated. You haven't said that. You haven't given an indication. But you go back to his house with your friend following, driving behind you in the car. He's intoxicated and falling asleep. Sounds like night lights out. You know, some people when they crash, that's it. They're going to get themselves from the car to the bed and then it's night all the way. And that might be when you say to your friend, all right, let's just go. Why would you have your friend drive behind you? No, so they get back into the SUV. They get back into the back seat of this SUV that she says the incident occurred in. So he has a driver. And they get back into the third seat of this SUV. That's the same SUV that they got into to drive over to the second place they went out after. It seems like she was working at that night at the place they were in Plano. And then maybe she gets off her shift for the night or whatever, and they want to go somewhere else. That kind of seems like the story. So they get into this SUV. And she says when they get to the new place, the new destination, they park. And everybody gets out of the car, except they're still in the back seat. And that's where the grape occurs. And nobody said anything. Nobody spoke. She did contradict herself and says, well, nobody said anything, but then she said no later. That's why I shouldn't do interviews, people. But now we're at the point where they're at this other venue, they're walking and mingling with people. They're apparently holding hands, and she's afraid of him at this point. Throughout the night, there's intermittent hand holding. That's supposed to be scary. But then she goes to her friend and said, according to her in this interview, she goes to her friend and says, all right, let's go. I'm going to, my car is back at in Plano at the first place we were at. But she gets into the same SUV, gets into the back seat with Dak Prescott. And then the friend with her own vehicle is following behind to go to Dak Prescott's house. Why wouldn't you be in the car with your friend if all of this just happened? And why would you go to his house? So Barbara says, did she tuck him in? Ghost says, it almost seems that she wants to explain away why she was holding hands. Also, the intoxicated person that fell asleep, he won't remember everything properly. Yeah, and well, that's the thing. Like, I have the question of how much were you drinking now? Like, I'm not going to say that everybody that works at a bar, or restaurant, or at a strip club drinks. She seems to be very vague. It seems they met at a strip club. They didn't want to say they met at a strip club, and that could have been where she was bartending or waitressing. But it's in their news reports now that where they were, this Plano place where her car was parked, was Ecstasy Cabaret. And she said at the beginning of this, she didn't want to, she was worried about losing her job where she worked because of her line of work, but, there's not everybody drinks when they work in a place like that, but alcohol is right there. And some people, if she says she's a bartender or waitress, sometimes you drink to loosen up on the job. We don't have her saying like, yeah, I already had a bunch of drinks, so I was already a little bit lucid. She just gives us that he was intoxicated and fell asleep. So, yeah, and then Barbara, was she waiting to get his number, but he fell asleep? I don't know, they said they had Snapchat. Someone had exchanged Snapchats, so why didn't she leave with the friend? You put the grapist in his car, then you get into your friend's escape car. That would be the normal course of action, right? Pam says it sounds like her adrenaline was kicking in. Gracie, is that you? And Pam, they can't take the word of the driver since Dak pays him. Yeah, so again, that's a common theme, right? A driver can't be a witness because they're paid by the person hiring them. They're not going to be reliable. Now, guys, I'm saying, like, the emotion seemed real at the beginning of this interview, but I have a lot of questions, and this interview, it's not just going to be me looking at it and having questions. If this goes to trial, this interview and what she's saying in it is going to be questioned. And remember, her attorneys are co-defendants, and they have an interview here too. So I'm interested in seeing this reporter, this person doing the interview, is getting, like, if you hear when the person that's interviewing her speaks, she's very gentle. Now, could you talk about that a little bit? She's very welcoming. And it's honestly setting someone up to say too much. So let's see.
And after that night, had you seen him again?
Yeah, because he would come into my place of work.
Did you feel pressure to sort of keep up that relationship because of your job role?
No.
Oh no. So let's hear. Pay attention to how she says that.
Take me to my car.
And after that night, had you seen him again?
Yeah, because he would come into my place of work.
Did you feel pressure to sort of keep up that relationship?
I don't know. I know she's dark in this, like, blocked out, we don't show my face. Yeah, because he would come into my place of work. You ever know somebody that doesn't get a call back, that doesn't get a good morning text, nothing else develops further after a hookup, then that person runs into that person again. You see them out. There's a reaction to that. It's a very valid reaction, but it doesn't mean it's a reaction because something nefarious occurred. This is why you shouldn't do interviews. Because the way she said that to me, yeah, you could be mad that someone that violated you showing up, but that sounded like yeah, I kept seeing him and he wasn't talking to me anymore. It could be that. Yeah, so I think it's pretty clear. She's like a bartender or waitress is what she's titling it, and she keeps saying she works there, but she's being very vague. She doesn't say where it was, but now we know it's XTC Cabaret in Plano. So, yeah. Yeah, so Pam, I believe she believes, but if she sounds questionable to an average person like me, an attorney would have a field day. Like, these interviews are like a setup. The person asking the questions is rolling out a red carpet for statements that could come back and bite you in the butt. Like, the person doing the interview is so gentle sounding.
Because of your job at all?
No, I mean, couldn't tell my bosses, they would fire me because that's, a big client of theirs or, big customer. So I just,
That's
would
fair.
tell my fellow waitresses to, take care of it, take care of the table if I was requested or if they were trying to put me on there. I just, I tried to stay away.
So there's probably other people that could come testify to this.
So I guess I have a question for your lawyers. But one of the things they said in their statement to us was that, Dak and his lawyers were trying to play hardball, big attorney, big sports star, kind of bully you and mm-hmm. victim blame, and you felt that way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, that's what it feels like now since it came out yesterday. That's what it seems like.
You talked about seeing him in grocery stores and kind of anywhere you go in town. What has that been like for you the last 7 years?
I mean, they're triggers.
And remember, Pam, these emotions, because I was like, oh, these emotions seem real. But she just got hit with, there's a criminal investigation into her for extortion and a civil suit against her, asking for $1 million or more that Dak Prescott says he's going to donate to the Joyful Hearts Foundation. But some of these emotions could be because less than 48 hours, it seems like by the time this interview was recorded, it was like less than 24 hours. She just got hit by an extortion suit and a police investigation from a celebrity that can probably afford good attorneys. And she knows you'd missed the demand letter. You weren't here for that because you came late. But she sent her and her attorneys, her co-defendants, sent this demand letter demanding explicitly $100 million. We don't want to talk about it, but we will if you don't give us this $100,000. You have to respond by February 16th, 2024. And then Monday of this week, Dak files his suit, and then it seems like this was recorded Monday night or Tuesday because it's already published and edited by the 13th. Yes, 100 million. Do I still have this sped up? It's sped up 1.25. Yeah, it's like, wait, can you still hear me? Oh my gosh. I
Still
know why.
feels
Oh my god, I'm
good at the same
stupid.
time that this
Thank you for letting me know. Let me go
And you
back.
mentioned
It's
sort of
because
now
I
you have
didn't
the
switch
support
back to
system
the
you feel like
tab.
you're able to kind of go through this with your fiance.
Mhm.
How so?
um
Let me go back to where I know I made a face. His lawyers are trying to hardball
So the
you.
house was that, Dak and his lawyers were trying to play hardball, big attorney, big sports star, kind of bully you and
mhm.
victim blame. Have you felt that way?
Mhm. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Um
So so
well,
everything she's saying right now is referring to what's transpired in like about 12 hours time because he files this on Monday. And make sure let me know that you can hear me now. It's because I didn't switch the tab. I'm sorry. But what she's about to say now, this is all she's describing. Like, this all happened yesterday. I'm recording this interview now. Everything she's going to describe is her emotions and her response in that small time
that's what it
frame.
feels like now since it came out yesterday. That's what it seems like.
You talked about seeing him in grocery stores and kind of anywhere you go in town. What has that been like for you over the last 7 years?
I mean, they're triggers. So depending how I was feeling that day, I might shed a couple tears, I get angry, or I just, ignore it.
In your statement from your attorneys, they talked about that this has had a big effect on your relationship with your fiance.
Mhm.
How so?
This is where I made the face.
Just with, communications, the touch things, I might come off as insensitive, maybe not wanting to be intimate in some circumstances, kind of cold, giving him the cold shoulder sometimes. He wouldn't understand, my anger outbursts. When it would be a fight about something, it's not really about that something. You know what I'm saying? So, we went to counseling, and that also helped open the door for me to be comfortable enough to come out, and that's what led us here.
Has he been supportive of you?
And I'm going to keep saying it. She didn't really come out. She said in that extortion letter, I want $100 million because I don't want to come out about it. But I'll have to if you don't respond to this. And now she's giving, like, this is the second time she's gone into it in this interview. Where, I'm comfortable now to come forward and talk. But you get this extortion letter on yesterday by the time of this interview. So Monday, she gets this extortion lawsuit. She knows that there's criminal charges. There's a police investigation into her for extortion. And then suddenly, in that 24-hour period, she's comfortable enough doing this interview. And then after this interview, she apparently goes and files police charges, criminal charges on her own against Dak Prescott. So when she's saying all this counseling and everything that helped her come forward and talk about it now, that moment of clarity must have had to have happened between this extortion lawsuit being filed on Monday and you recording this interview the following day. Because it's not what you were saying in your demand letter in January of this year.
Doing this?
Very. Yes, very.
And you mentioned sort of now you have the support system. Do you feel like in part you're able to kind of go through this journey because you have him? Is that who you're referring to?
Him, yes. My lawyers, my dad, yeah. Even though it is hard to come out, just try to, if you have that support system, come out as soon as possible, as soon as you can. Yeah, I think that's all.
Given the things people have said and the backlash from people online, you still happy you did this?
Yeah. Yeah, I am.
Why?
Because it's a step of healing for me. Even though all this is going on, it still feels good at the same time that this is happening, that I am coming out and I am saying something.
You talked about pursuing, criminal charges.
Mm-hmm.
What would your hope be? What would you want to come out of that? Why is that important to you?
I mean, I do want him to suffer somewhat of how much I suffered. So if that's getting arrested, spending some time in jail if needed, then I want that.
I mean, I think off the bat, the biggest thing I would want to ask you is
Now this is her attorneys being interviewed. And it sounds like kind of the same reporter voice that we're going to get into. But she was very vague with her language of what she thinks was wrong, how she was feeling. All of those things could be valid truths if what she's really feeling is just regret of something that didn't work out. So, Nathan Moore, welcome. You're joining the party late. So, as far as evidence, she's alluded that other people were around, but she has not said that they saw something. She says it happened when only her and Dak Prescott were in the back of an SUV when they pulled up and parked at a place that both of their friends and them, they were going to go and party for another round of fun during the night. Everyone gets out of the car and it's just them in there. She says they don't say anything, but then later in the interview she says she actually said no. And then she mentions walking around, holding his hands on and off, getting in his car at the end of the night. She says she starts to say she's going to her friend. She wants to leave and is going to her friend. She's telling the interviewer this. And she ends up getting into the same SUV that Dak Prescott either has a driver for or hired for the night and gets back into the back seat with him. And then the friend drives behind her, follows behind this SUV to go to Dak Prescott's house. But he's intoxicated and fell asleep. So then she gets in her friend's car and they go back to the first place they were at where she works as a bartender waitress. It's called Ecstasy Cabaret. It's a strip club where her car was parked. And then that's the end of the night. So, no exact. All right, Pam. Pam is ready. Let's get Pam up here. Let's see. All right, Pam. StreamYard link is in the YouTube chat for you. So we're going to get Pam up here. This will be perfect because we've got right now on the screen. This is the attorneys that sent the extortion letter for Victoria Shores in January of this year to Dak Prescott. They are named as co-defendants in the suit. And I'm assuming in the criminal police complaint for extortion and defamation and tortious interference. So, fun times. And there's this interview that they did. We'll see, I guess, if they found out that there was a police complaint made that involved them yet at the time of this interview. We'll have to see if they get questioned on that. I'm sure we'll find out because this reporter seems to be asking everything. But as far as evidence, Nathan, I don't know because it seems like there's other people that were present at the bar, present for the car ride. She mentions that, Dak Prescott continued to come into the strip club where she worked because he was a client there. So it's pretty evident she's working. She doesn't come out and say she works at a strip club. But we know the place was called Ecstasy Cabaret. She says she's a bartender waitress. And then she refers to him as being a client at the establishment. But when he comes in after this incident that she's alleging took place on February 2nd, 2017, there's no contact anymore. Let me get Pam up here. Hello, Pam.
Hello.
Hold on, we're so tiny on this screen. Maybe this is a little, yeah, that's a little bit better. You're so purple. I love it.
You.
I love purple.
One moment.
Can you hear me now?
It's my audio. I'm sorry. I got audio on.
Okay, I can hear you. So just let me know when you can hear me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You guys are just going to be looking at us.
When I try to be my own sound person and editor, I'm changing the
Struggle
audio
stream.
mics. Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing?
Everyone say hey to Pam. And Pam, I was back to the microphone thing. This was months ago. So I've done Courtney Clenny content since then. But the very first thing I was going to do was a deep dive into everything. And I haven't even looked back at half of it. I recorded the whole thing with my microphone off. It was like 3 hours of a deep dive that probably would have been like an hour and 45 cut down liberally, right? The whole thing. I went to play it. I'm like, why can't I hear it? I went through the whole thing. I was like, oh my gosh. So I know the struggle. I know
because I still have my Courtney Clenny thing. I have it set up and looking pretty and pulled up all these things. I hadn't done it yet. I don't know.
There's a lot there. I mean, we've got to have Barbara in there. I think Ghost has been around for some of the Clenny stuff. I think Daisy has too, Miranda. So when you do that, let me know in advance. That way I can we can give people awareness.
I just want to let everybody know that I'm going to be debuting a new show on my channel. I'm going to let it be live for everybody, and then for my members, I'm going to do it. It's called Stunts and Shows and Shenanigans, and we're going to go over all the stunts and shows and shenanigans of any topic, of any court thing, of all of that stuff like that. So if I had debuted
That's
this
great.
weekend, I would have done that stunts and shows and shenanigans with Fanny, but Fanny and the Wade guy, all of that. I'd have done that one because that was stunt shows and shenanigans for real.
Well, I love the theme because it's like, it doesn't matter, you know, like, oh, I talk mostly about comics and movies, but then I want to talk about something in the legal realm that isn't from someone that's in the comic space. Well, that's kind of weird. Or I do legal stuff, but I want to talk about a movie one day. So that is just kind of like anything that you could kind of go about. It seems like it could fit on your show.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's awesome.
It's a mess. It is a mess. And this sounds. Who were her attorneys? I
right here on the screen. Right here on the screen.
Y'all
I
got
think
to be a
they're
bunch
either
of,
married or related. They have the same last name.
well, whatever. They married or related. Y'all got to be a bunch of dummies to send somebody a letter talking about $100 million daggum dollars. What is y'all talking about? Does he make $100 million?
I'm sure his contracts are up there, but that would probably be, let me just look up his net worth because he has a lot of endorsements, right? So
But you look that up. But even still,
I'm sure it's above that.
whatever she's describing that she says that happened,
70 million according to Google.
well, he don't have
This
enough
is net
money.
worth.
He don't have enough money to pay you.
She didn't even Google the net worth first. That's step one.
That tells me right now that you two got to be y'all were at the y'all ain't finished law school. Y'all up there perpetrating a fraud. I don't think y'all finished law school because that's got to be the dumbest thing. You got to know how much somebody is worth before you sue them for more than what they're worth.
I don't know. I think because juries can be juries, right? And when you hear of certain cases, like New York State, we have the E. Jean Carroll thing, that was a big award amount. But New York State doesn't have a statutory cap on certain things like that. I don't know how it is in Texas, right? And I'm assuming if this goes criminal, it's the Dallas Police Department investigating. But she's outside the realm of a civil suit. So at this point, she wanted to do this extortion letter, but the statute of limitations is up for her to file a civil claim against what she's alleging occurred to her. Oh. So she can only file criminal charges. So once he filed this extortion, this lawsuit against her and her attorneys, she does this interview and then goes and files criminal charges because there's no civil case.
So wait a minute.
So to me, this criminal charge is to clean up so you have a better defense in response to this extortion and defamation lawsuit being levied against you.
So the civil lawsuit that she could file has a statute of limitations, but not the criminal?
Yeah, apparently that's something that's come from her, the interviewer. I saw it in some articles, and the attorneys there's quotes from these two attorneys that say just as much. So I didn't look it up, but I'm taking it at their word because her own attorneys are the ones saying the civil statute is up. So, you know, if they're the ones that could benefit from it, they would be the ones arguing like, no, there's an exception. This is why we could still pursue a civil lawsuit. We could take that avenue, right? So I was kind of like, all right, I'm going to take it at face value. But well, Daisy, yeah, so she's requesting $100 million from the sports star for alleged essay from 7 years ago that she sent directly to him and didn't go through the courts. You have that correct.
Dr. Evil, $100 million.
And yeah, that does kind of, you know, it feels backward. It feels weird because we usually, in my opinion, if you're going to falsely accuse somebody, it's so much more painful and egregious to want them to do prison time. That's the ultimate robbing of your freedom, right? If you're going to falsely accuse someone, the criminal route seems like the worst of the two punishments you could face. But at the same time, with false accusations, there's, you know, probably an inclination to go and take the civil route. So I guess to see why the legislation could be written out that way, hey, the statute of limitations for something is longer if it's criminal than it is if you take the civil route, I guess I can kind of see why. Because it would say, hey, if you're going to wait, I think that the statute of limitations was 5 years for the civil for SA. If you're going to wait more than 5 years, you better make it a criminal case and not just come out and do a civil case against somebody. So maybe that's the way that the legislators in Texas thought about it. I can kind of see. But it's weird to hear. So like,
Well, he's a handsome guy. I didn't even know who he was, child. I'm just looking because everybody's
Dak
a baby.
Prescott?
Yeah, he's a handsome guy. Okay, 30. Okay, I see him. But
So and this happened in 2017, rookie year. He just got a big contract from the Cowboys. And he was at this strip club where she worked.
That's 6-7 years ago. Okay. And she's claiming SA.
Yes. Well,
And this-
actually, I think they're going further because they said SA. But then they say vaginal penetration. So maybe they're gonna. I haven't seen a police report. Maybe there's going to be an extra thing that's being alleged because it changes the statute of limitations issue. Which, you know me, I'll have another issue if we tack on a different charge to get around a statute of limitations and we do an interview about it and we have an extortion letter about it. So there's a lot. There's a lot here, Pam.
I'm just
Do you want to see the attorneys talk? I haven't heard. I've seen some quotes from them that I thought were interesting.
yes.
Let's hear what they say.
You obviously heard from Dak's
I'm going to
attorney.
slow them down because it sounds faster.
Just your reaction to all the things that they said and put out in the universe yesterday.
Yeah, so first of all, I would say that both of us were flabbergasted. In our
So they're
mind,
flabbergasted that a lawsuit was filed against them in response to this. You did not expect this to come your way.
we're saying you raped somebody and you
So
want
they
to
are.
file a lawsuit. When we read, the whole extortion narrative, we were really just mind blown because what we did was send a demand letter, which is very standard. We and other attorneys do it every single day for millions and millions of cases nationwide. So
He just
but what
he just said, we all do this. We all file millions of these every day. That's a gross hyperbole.
they're trying to do is they want to take over the narrative. They wanted to beat us to the punch and try to make this about.
Hold on, let me say hey to Miranda. So Miranda, if you're here for like 2 seconds, Pam is doing a new show. Shows, stunts, and what's the other S? Shenanigans. Pam is doing a new show where it's going to be reacting to anything that's kind of a moment.
Stunt shows, yeah, stunt
Stay
shows
tuned for that, Miranda. I always love when Miranda can join. I hope you have a good night since you can't stick around, Miranda. Thanks for stopping in.
Yeah.
Stunt shows and shenanigans or show stunts and shenanigans?
It's stunt shows and shenanigans. Stunt shows
Okay,
and shenanigans.
stunt
yes.
shows shenanigans.
Mhm.
That's going to be the theme. You got to say it 10 times fast to participate in the chat.
Ooh. But yeah, because I thought about doing it on this what's those people across the pond, Kate and them. 'Cause
Oh,
there's a
with the
lot-
Photoshop stuff? Oh, you guys would have to educate me on that.
That's some stuff. And you know what? Now that I think about it, y'all, I may debut it Saturday or Sunday, just depending on how things. Bye, Miranda. It may depend on how things work out this weekend, but I'll let everybody know. I will put a flyer out no later than tomorrow morning if I'm gonna do it this weekend. But
Sweet.
next
I know
weekend
nothing
for-
about it, but I know I would not want to be a royal if I have to go through surgery and everybody is going to be up my butt about where I am and what I'm doing.
Oh, baby,
I couldn't do it.
I won't say much because I'll keep.
Yeah, don't spoil it because I need to
yeah.
learn. I'm like pretty much a blank slate besides what's popped up on the timeline, but I didn't dive into it.
Yeah, so
Let's see.
get back to the lawyer.
This
This is-
we're in it now, guys.
something else that it's not. we want the narrative to reflect what this is, which is Dak Prescott raped somebody. So what they're trying to
So they're being sued for defamation currently. They are co-defendants. They are being sued for defamation per se, and they're doing this interview right after they see this lawsuit.
And then they don't even use, he has been.
I'm assuming that they must have gone and filed the police complaint at this point.
Okay, because I hope so.
We'll probably find out, because when she was interviewed, when Victoria Shores was interviewed, she said we are going to.
Okay.
It hadn't happened yet. And in the background, it looked like it was like evening time in Dallas. Like maybe they recorded it Monday night. Let's see.
to do, Dak and his attorney, Levi McCatherine, is they're basically the ones who are now trying to commit extortion. They're trying to send a message that, hey, we're...
No. They're protected by litigation privilege. That's not how extortion works. I don't have faith in these attorneys. I don't have very much confidence in these attorneys.
Don't play them. Read Mel's statement right there in the comments.
Okay, so Mel Jasham. Okay, yeah, we need to find out what type of SUV this is, by the way, because that could also make a difference. So, hey, Mel. So Dak is 6'2", 230 pounds, in the third row. By the way, I'm not a Dak Cowboy fan. Just seems improbable given the circumstances. I'm a Vikings fan, by the way.
Because if it's
we need Danny. We need Danielle. We need Danny Atherton.
If it's an SUV like Danny's, I mean, the other on the other case, he sat back there for a hot minute. But we'll see.
We'll have Barbara invoke Eliza and Danny for us. Let's see if they can come in. She's saying, Danny, come to the chat.
Ooh, I don't know. This is
and I wonder. I don't know if Danny. I don't think Danny pays attention to sports, but maybe she's like, some people are just like fans of a team because they don't pay attention to sports, so they'll like usually be a Cowboys fan.
I didn't know,
or like,
I'm a Pittsburgh fan, so but I haven't paid attention to football and any sports in like 6-7 years now. So I wouldn't know. I hear the names, but I can't correlate what they look like. So I had to look him up to see what's going on.
Oh, by the way, Pam, since you came late, Cowboys, Stephen Jones, vice president, and then I guess is Jerry Jones. That's his son, right? So Jerry Jones, they're sticking behind Dak Prescott. So at the beginning of the stream, I was like, look, if someone's innocent, if you think there's no merits to the accusations against them, it's really nice to see someone stand behind them that isn't me and you just on a YouTube channel somewhere speaking into the void, a growing void that we appreciate you being here for.
And just for some little background information now, this is what I have been told. So I'm going to say allegedly. If you all watched Girlfriends, Jill Marie Jones is supposed to be the owner of the Cowboys' daughter. That's just extra information, girl. The Play-Doh girl.
I'm so like, this is where I need pictures in a web. I need, that meme of, is it Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's got like the conspiracy board and all the Post-its. That's what I need to piece it all together.
Yeah, because they talk about, what is that thing? MK Ultra or something like that. It's supposed to be some mess inside of that. I don't know all the.
Where it's like it's planned, it's coordinated that it's
but
happen.
She's supposed to be his daughter. Now I don't know how you get all of that, but that was just some side information. It has nothing to do with this. I'm just when you said the Jones, that was the first thing I thought about.
It's the shenanigans side. It's a preview for the shenanigans show.
That's the first thing I thought about.
I don't think I heard him say this, but I see the caption saying that they're going to do a David and Goliath metaphor.
For Goliath. And if you don't put this thing away, X, Y, Z is going to happen. One of the things that Levi filed was tortious interference with an existing contract.
Tortious interference.
Who had an existing contract?
So they're talking about Dak, and he's in contract negotiations now to new contract, but his existing contract and contract negotiations.
Oh, but okay, because I see, that's what I say, I'm a lay person.
I have concerns. Can we rewatch how he said this?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about tortious interference. Oh, I went back a little far.
Okay,
trying to do, Dak and his attorney, Levi McCatherine, is they're basically the ones who are now trying to commit extortion. They're trying to send a message that, hey, we're Goliath, and if you don't put this thing away, you know, X, Y, Z is going to happen. One of the things that Levi filed was torturous interference with an existing contract.
It's not just a bad caption. He says one of the things they filed was torturous interference. I don't know. I've already said I don't have faith in this attorney. It's tortious interference. And you've read the complaint that he's a co-defendant. Someone is bringing a lawsuit against him and his partner, who might be a relative or a wife, sitting next to him, as well as Victoria Shores. One of the claims is tortious interference, which is interference with, it's tort law, it's interference with the contract, course of business. He stumbles and calls it torturous interference with an existing contract, which to me, I'm thinking maybe this is the first time he's heard about it, but he's handling like some type of civil litigation initiation. He's sending demand letters on behalf of somebody. I think I said earlier when we started watching Victoria Shore's interview segment that it could be her attorney is putting her in hot water, period, or hotter water if she put herself in the hot water first, right?
Right.
I don't have faith in this. But so we have Danielle K in the chat. I don't want to butcher your last name. 2021 Chevy Yukon is the type of car that it is.
I'm looking
and I want
at
to point out, we're saying Danny, Danny, Danny. So you are not Danny Does Law or Danielle Atherton. But we were making a joke that Danielle Atherton, who Danny Does This and That is her channel. With the Jonathan Majors case, she was the one that broke down exactly the Escalade, the black SUV that they were in that night. Had pictures of the bucket seats, explained how far apart the seats are. So we were just joking. We said, Barbara, invoke Danny, and maybe Danny will show up. And we have another Danielle K with the breakdown of how the car works. So we're dealing with the 2021 Chevy Yukon was the car. And this is a good point. If you're doing it in a certain way, both people can have their pants halfway off and still get the job done. Because she mentioned in her interview, she said, well, I didn't have my pants all the way off. But if you're doing something doggy style, she says in the statement, she was just sitting back and it just happened and she was powerless and couldn't move to do anything. If that has to be the mechanism by which this type of thing happened, that there would have been room for it, that's a different description than saying I just sat back and I couldn't do anything. So Danielle K, shout out to you showing up with the context.
Yeah, right.
Because now a Yukon's not the same size in the third row as an Escalade. We're thinking even smaller, and we had Mel point out that Dak Prescott is 6'2" and 230 pounds. And it was his rookie year. Maybe he was a different size back then, but you don't change 6'2" overnight, right? So you're still 6'2"
Right.
whenever this happened. Great context to think about. All Danielles will respond eventually.
Yes. Yeah, because I'm looking at this car and I can't, I don't have a way to get in, I don't see, how sometimes you could go to these places and you can customize your car, and then I could go inside and see the inside of it, but it's a nice size car. I just can't see the inside. Let me see if we could say interior.
So while you pick that up, we're going to hear about, I really like the way he said this. I feel like this attorney isn't familiar with tortious interference, but he just got it slapped against him in a lawsuit filed the day before he's giving this interview and had to go figure out what that was. And it's ridiculous, this narrative that we engage in tortious interference.
Contract. Absolutely nothing to do with anything that this case is, but he's trying to use intimidation tactics.
Do you think he's not just trying to scare her, but also the two of you?
He's trying to, yes, all three of us. And I wouldn't be surprised. I can't say this as a fact, certainty, but I wouldn't be surprised if the people who have been sending us messages are not at their discretion, or direction, excuse me. So.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's an intimidation factor, trying to use old common practice of victim shaming and victim blaming. Let me get the attention off of me. But we're not afraid of Mr. Prescott or his legal team. at all. We're ready to fight back, and we are going to fight back.
And am I right that he didn't just sue Victoria, but he sued the two of you as well?
Fight back, but this is who fired the shots. Just remember who fired the shots.
Yes, that is correct.
Which is very uncommon, which was very surprising to us. But once again, it's an intimidation tactic, a bully tactic, trying to scare us.
Yes, and
What was your demand letter then?
according to Texas law, we don't even believe that that lawsuit directed at us was even had any basis in law. There is a lot of law in Texas that says you cannot sue attorneys for what they do during the course of their work. So we'll address that. We'll address the lawsuit against our client.
I'm sure there's exceptions to that, buddy.
We are not going to be bullied, as she said, which is what they're trying to do, is bully us.
We are definitely going to be pursuing criminal charges. I don't want to say too much.
So they didn't do it yet. Pam, we got our answer. They didn't file the police report yet.
Well, well, I'm
Oh
sitting
my
here
God.
y'all hadn't filed these lawsuits, y'all hadn't filed these charges, and you're relaying, and then you stood there and
Doing an
said
interview.
that this person did the thing, the essay, but y'all hadn't filed charges and didn't put allegedly in the front of that. Oh, I see why y'all being sued for defamation, worrying about bully tactics. Y'all.
This is a preview of. Oh my God, I need it written in front of me. Shows, stunts, shenanigans. I have it backwards.
stunt. See, I'm getting confused, but it's stunt shows.
It's my fault. I'm sorry. When you need to have it written on the screen, so that way I get it right. So, but this is a preview for Pam's upcoming show of the
This
type
is
of
crazy.
content you will see.
This is
What I can
crazy.
tell you is
Like,
that
why are you not legal advice, common sense advice? Don't do this type of interview. Like, just don't do it. We wouldn't be able to be having these reactions right now without this interview. It'd be a totally different story. There'd be some other things we could talk about based on what's on paper. But having these interviews is a big difference. And again, I think you guys pointed it out in chat. If we're sitting here having questions about it, imagine what an attorney will do when they're adjudicating it or whatever. Even a judge could be like, didn't she make these statements? Oh my gosh. What's next, guys?
the criminal charges and the civil case we're pursuing both of them ongoing at the same time simultaneously. And so the way that way it would work is we would file a police report, they'll do their investigation, and depending on what comes from the investigation, the case will move forward from there.
And so the plan is now at some point to have your client file a police report.
Absolutely.
And
See, the reporter
Yeah.
had to ask. Do you see that? The reporter had to ask and confirm that that's what she also just realized. This reporter is getting so much out.
Had she, at your direction or before she met you at all, had she filed a police report on this incident in the past?
So it's taken her a while to come out, both for the civil case, criminal case, just speaking out in general. It's something she's been dealing with for a long time, and it's not uncommon at all for sexual assault victims to take some time before they address the incident. And it's one of the most common tactics. The other,
They're gonna
party
say it's
says, well,
Darvo.
she never said anything about it for this amount of time. But now she's ready, and we're handling both civil, criminal, and also just speaking out against Dak in general to let people know who he really is.
And filing a police report, would that be through the Dallas Police Department?
Yes,
Correct.
that would be correct.
As far as civil, you talked about civil, my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, as far as a civil lawsuit, she's passed the statute of limitations.
So she's passed the statute of
A
limitations
different charge.
for sexual assault for civil, but there are other avenues that we do have available to address this incident, and we plan to do that very soon with a counterclaim.
One of the a counterclaim to you'll countersue Dak
Correct.
for his lawsuit.
Correct.
And that's something you're also in the process of, a civil
Absolutely.
countersuit.
Absolutely.
One of the things I asked your client, and that you said you'd take over, which I suspected you might say, the $100 million. And I'm sure you see people on the internet, $100 million. That's a huge number. Why $100 million?
So I've seen people say, why 100 million? I think that is just so awful, because what you're basically saying is, she should have a cap, for a rape case. there's an old saying in wrongful death cases where, what is the value of a dead person, right? In a wrongful death case. We look at rape as the same exact thing. What is the value you can put on a rape? Who are you, not you specifically, but I'm just saying we see it in people saying that. Who are you to tell a rape victim what she is entitled to? I don't think that there is a number that you can put that'll truly compensate somebody for a rape case.
So
yeah.
we talked about, you and your client will pursue criminal charges. You're in the process of filing a report with DPD, working on a civil countersuit. Those to me kind of stick out as like the three big, this is what's next.
Yes.
Is there anything else that I should, report that I should be aware of that sort of happens next for you and your client?
Those are the three main things, and in addition to that, just speaking out and getting her story out there.
Remember that demand letter. She didn't want to get her story out there, and less than 24 hours later from the extortion civil lawsuit being filed. Well, this is all about her getting her story out there. But you just wanted $100 million because you didn't want to have to get your story out there. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much should they have not done this interview, Pam?
4,862.
And we have, you guys are catching certain things in here too. And Nathan had a question. I think Barbara had answered it. But do we know if Dak Prescott and this woman have had any other interactions? So, where she used to work at Ecstasy Cabaret in Plano, he was a client there, so he kept coming back in. And she mentioned, well, I saw him again because he's on cereal boxes at the grocery store, and he would come into my place of work after February 2nd because he was a client there. And I would just have other waitresses take care of his table. So, honestly, her demeanor during that part of the interview could be interesting. If you go back on replay to watch it, you could kind of see what you get from the demeanor rather than me reciting the words back.
You know what this reminds me of? What is the name? Because he was a Dallas Cowboy player, but he was retired. He was on television. What was his name? Was it Michael Irving?
Yeah, it was Michael Irvin. It's the same attorney representing Dak Prescott in this.
Okay, because it just paralleled to me about service work. Now don't mishear me. I'm just saying it parallels that you have service workers with these coming in contact with these multi-millionaire men, basketball players, football players, or whatever. And then it's just this interaction, because I know if I'm remembering correctly with that case, they proved it not to be true because the cameras show that he stood there and talked to the woman and then left, but he didn't do anything else with her. And they showed her around the cameras and stuff like that. So this is just interesting to me, that parallel of, you see the service workers that are interacting with these players and interacting and then going back and doing things with these players. I'm just, I'm trying to wrap my head around that whole culture.
That type of service work, your looks can determine the amount of money you can make. And she said she's not in that line of work anymore. So if you were making good money doing that, whether you were bartender, waitress, or that was a loose title that you gave yourself, because she really tried to not speak about it. Yeah, so you have your screen up. You ready for it?
Yeah. Did you just share that? I just want the little red one up in the corner. That's the inside of a 2021 Yukon GMC, whatever.
Okay, so that's what you're saying. So do the seats, if they're not using the trunk space,
they fold. So she just laid back there. That no, this is not that type of show to say what I want to say. But
how? I have questions about physics. I have questions. We need Bill Nye to tell us how this can work. Without being too vulgar, you can. But okay, but it has to be pushed back, right? I'm assuming if he was being driven around and they were loading people in the car, they pushed it back so people could fit and sit there, right?
Fit. Yeah.
And that's not too vulgar. I mean, that's important context.
Yeah.
So first there were the birds, and then there were the bees. We take it all the way back.
Yeah, I can clearly see So that means that they were the only two people in the car besides the driver, correct? There wasn't other people in the car, right?
So there were other people in the car, but they got out when they parked at the next place that they were going to go out and hang out at. They were going to go to
God.
another, like, when you're at one place, or maybe she got off her shift, but you were, oh yeah, I want to go with you. You guys want to come? And you all hop in the car and you go out and you have a good time. They park at the second place they're going to. She leaves her car at the Plano place. And then everyone gets out of the car except it's her and him in the third seat. And that's when everything apparently happens. And then they end up going in and hanging out with all their friends and whatever else, holding hands after all of it, because she was scared, so she kept holding hands with him.
So there's a way to fold that seat down without getting out of the car?
Okay, so the livery version has stationary seats. So if it's like a hired car, which would make sense, because there's no indication that Dak tried to drive. He was in the back seat to and from. The tracker is getting into the details. I'm going to put that on the screen.
Right. Because, this is us
But it doesn't.
going through.
She says she just sat back and was helpless. She described the motion. But so yeah.
And maybe so, unless it's like, how so mamas would know about this. You know how when you change a diaper and you take the baby's leg and you put him, you hold him up a little bit and stuff like that. Was it that type of motion that was happening? Because that's what I thought of when she said she just kind of laid back. That did he take her? I don't. That's why I was saying it's probably not the type of show, because I am not trying to do any shaming. I'm just trying to see in my
Laughing at
mind's
your
eye.
baby metaphor.
I know it's sad. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, but that's the only thing I can think of when you take, if you fall back and you lie back and then you're doing all of this without having to do much with your legs, then did
Yeah.
someone take your legs? That's all I was asking. Okay.
I love the metaphor.
Yeah, she could do that, but she's real flexible. Like,
Yeah, so that's why if she was just a waitress versus if she was a dancer, then yeah.
Right,
But then
right.
you're not laying there doing nothing, right? So for it to be possible, it seems like it makes more sense that people were maneuvering a certain way, strategically, purposefully.
Okay. All right. I'm just,
But she said she wasn't moving.
see, I'm not familiar with the tango.
The motion
car.
of the Chevy Tahoe Ocean.
Yeah, I'm not. See, that was always
The Lake Tahoe.
I've never been that person that can get down like that in the car. So I know it sounds crazy and I know I sound a thing, but I've never done that. So I'm just literally curious.
Yeah,
about
we are
how would
very
you get back
appreciative
there?
of the breakdowns from the chat.
Yeah. So thank you, Tracker, because I'm curious myself. I'm looking, and then you see that where is it? Is that shown? Yeah, right in here. So this is how it looks in the back from the back side. So that's good. That's a good amount of space if you
With
look
it
at
folded down.
Yeah.
Now hold on. If you just met somebody and you're rolling around back there and everyone else gets out of the car and you're still hanging out back there, and like, are you captive? Cause I don't know.
You're right, Mel. It can't be a 21 Chevy Yukon in 2017.
Oh yeah, that's true.
You are see this is why
The
it's so
2020.
good. Oh, I mean, because this happened in 2017. So you're exactly right. This is why we need to just go through this stuff and talk it through, because
So at best, it could be a 28 because like depending on this is February, so
Right.
it would probably still be a 2017 even if it was the newest and they just got it.
Did I do something? You're exactly.
I wonder, there's probably a livery model as well, like if this was a hired driver.
Yeah, I just I thought maybe they would do another inside. Well, I guess this
We
is.
want to see the interior, but not the front seats.
Uh-oh. Ooh. Is that the interior? This is supposed to be 2017.
Okay, so that looks like a standard, like it's a full seat and there's like slightly less leg room in that third row.
Right.
But still, I think that makes it, I think this visual, I mean, just maybe because of the angle and because the seats aren't pushed down, that makes it seem more complicated to make happen in the third seat.
Right. I was just going back down. That's a 2019. This is a 2019. And what was it?
That
I
looks a
saw,
little bit more spacious because there's space in the second row where there's bucket seats. Because then
right.
you can like put your feet there to do things. But I can't picture like that seems like a lot if it wasn't bucket seats. I feel like it has to be a model that had bucket seats.
What was it before? Who put it in the chat? It was a 2017 something something. Oh, Chevy Yukon.
Oh, a Chevy Yukon, not a Tahoe. Why did I say Tahoe?
Girl, listen.
Ah,
So, Chevy Yukon, because a Yukon and Denali are two different types of cars, right? In the GMC lineup.
yeah, but they could be similar sized.
Because I see this little thing over here that says 2017 Yukon Denali interior. So my car people in the chat, because I'm gonna click it just because I want to see if what they're showing in 2017. So that's a Buick GMC. Come on, give me the interior. Well, here it is.
Okay, so
It's-
Denali is a specialized Yukon.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, somebody said that the 2017 the seats didn't go down. They were stationary. They didn't move. We can stop sharing my screen.
If this, I would say, if this goes to trial, any of them, we're gonna find out. I'm sure they're gonna bring that up. We get to see. And some Texas cases are televised, so in my personal opinion, I feel like if someone's being falsely accused, they're gonna want
Right.
to see the transparency because the worst has already been said. Someone might come up with like the details of how it happened, but in theory, the worst has already been said about you. But if you televise it, you can let people see the kind of demeanors and judge for themselves. So
Right.
if it's televised, we might actually be able to see them like, and is this the type of vehicle there? Does this look familiar? And really get it broken down completely. Yeah.
Jack, we finna break this down. Come on now.
The Friday night
this
live stream we did
down.
not expect.
Yeah, we about to break this down because it's, not that I'm trying to be salacious, but it is interesting to try to get the logistics. You got somebody that's 6'2". I don't know how tall she
Yeah.
is, how the logistics work, and most of the time men are doing most of the work. So how you get the grip in, how you move in, how you, it's logistically, I'd like to see that even to see this litigated, I would like to see how you talk about the
Yeah.
logistics of it all.
Yeah, I think if it goes to trial, we'll see. I'm actually interested. We still have some of these two attorneys. I don't know if his attorneys will be that entertaining as these two, but I'm curious what goes on with the rest of this.
Curious to see what
They've
they-
already thrown the
Getting,
kitchen sink.
just telling the truth. And like Mr. Zahai said, Mr. McCatherine got out there to his credit and put out his narrative.
For the most part, through litigation. It's very different when you put something in a complaint versus when you're speaking to the news about it.
But we're here to tell the truth, and that's what we are going to do.
I wonder, seeing some of the vitriol that has been directed to your client online, I suspect his attorneys probably had a feeling some of that would happen, but what has it been like to actually see and read?
It's been difficult. I've seen people putting my client's address out there, throwing her name out there, making statements saying that this is why it's hard for sexual assault victims to come forward. In addition to
So that's the exact same thing, the example that I think she gave two examples. The Victoria Shores gave two examples. But you have all these posts coming at you, but you give the same example. You and your attorney both give the same example. So that's interesting a little.
to that, I've even received some hate emails, some fake spam reviews. It's been difficult to navigate through it, but we are staying focused and we're not going to get distracted by that. It's part of the process. It's what we have to deal with. We're dealing with the quarterback of America's team, so we knew going into this that those things were going to happen. But
This is probably worth pointing out that somebody pulled Facebook posts from Joel. I think she said his name was Jair, is how they say the last name. Someone went and pulled his Facebook post, and he is not a fan of Dak Prescott. He likes the Cowboys, but hates Dak Prescott. So
This man right here.
this attorney, yep.
Oh.
So someone went and found his Facebook posts. So he's like, get rid of this man. Talking about the Cowboys losing, according to him, because of Dak Prescott. So that's interesting. Can you imagine voir dire if there's a trial and they're like, do you watch football? Who's your favorite team? And no, he's not. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes is probably America's quarterback, but I think like Cowboys are kind of like
I don't think the
one of the
Cowboys
favorite
has had
America's
a winning
teams
season. I don't think the
in a
Cowboys
while,
have had a
yeah.
winning season in what, since the 90s? I don't
So
think
he said, hold on. He came up. This is speculation on my part. This is pure speculation. Joel Zaire said, I'm gonna solve the Cowboys losing streak.
he gonna get rid of Dak.
And then immediately Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones and the Cowboys are like, that's not impacting our contract decisions at all. We back Dak.
Mm.
So,
Mm. This is and what is going on with her and Fanny wearing all this Valentino pink? What is going on? Only me would see that. But go ahead. Are
it's
they
kind of
empowered?
I like the color, but you know,
Are they empowered by it? Is it an empowered?
I don't know. Because
I
he's
just
in the blue. He's with the blue on blue on blue. With the blue, yeah. So he's got the blue everywhere. So maybe they tried to go for like the blue and pink thing. I don't know. Yeah, Barbara says Fonny had the better hairstyle.
Read the one before that one.
He's gonna be the guy who takes out the quarterback like Gracie took out Kang. Stop it, Barbara.
Oh, Barbara is hitting on 1,000 tonight.
Always.
Oh my God.
Certainly way more than the attorney so far seem
We're
to.
not going to let them distract us. So during our initial conversation with
have a
Mr.
break.
McCathern, his attorney, he flat out said that Mr. Prescott did not know who she was. And then maybe a week or so later, during a second conversation that we had, he all of a sudden, oh yes, I remember her. And then the next time we talk, and as you see in his narrative, now it's not only do I know her, but we had consensual sex. And that is a completely different tone now that we are seeing from our initial conversation with Mr. McCathern. To go,
I bet you this is their favorite detail. Go ahead, Pam.
I'm wondering, did he know her? Like,
Did he know her name?
Did he
Did
know
he
her
know what she
name?
looked like without her get up for work?
Yeah. Did she know? I mean, did he know
He was
her?
intoxicated on the way home.
Exactly. See, we're here because I'm asking, did he know her or did he know her?
7 years later.
Yeah. Did you?
Would you? So they're gonna say that that's some type of he's not credible, he's a liar. But to me, you have 7 years. She could have been looked a certain way that she doesn't look on a daily basis.
Right.
Could have gone back to that strip club, and if they didn't have if she avoided him because she says she avoids him.
Right.
She
But
could have not known her name because you go by another name there.
Exactly. And the culture, the way it is for young people, she could have gotten fillers and plumped her lips up and done some other little different things
Yeah.
to her face and her body that that she probably had then that she may not have now. Does she look the same? I'm just curious.
Yeah, and if this goes to trial, they'll poke holes in all of that. Like, oh, what was your name when you worked did you go by your full name? And then they'll
Right,
ask if they bring another witness forward, someone that worked with her. They'll be like, did she use her government name when she worked?
Exactly.
Like,
Tracker
do
said
you
right
know
the
if she
thing.
gave the name?
Yeah, Tracker said, did
Let's
she use
see.
her stripper name? Did she use her stage name? Yeah, I mean, because I could have been Bethany on the poll, but you wouldn't know me as Pamela. You only knew me as Bethany. And so if you said my name, my real name, and you didn't know my real name, of course, I would say, I don't know who that person is until you show me pictures. Oh, you talk about Bethany. Oh, that's
Yeah, and if there's like a hookup culture, that's even more, right? Because you hook up and you move on, right? And the idea is to not get to know the person. So is it incriminating if someone doesn't know right away who someone that accusing them is? Like, I think they're going to think that this is their biggest gotcha. Like, oh, he lied. but it could be totally
And that's a
valid.
good question, Tracker. I mean, because I like I said, I would love to, my curiosity is piqued. So did they know how did they know each other? That's the better question. How did they know each other? Because it is impressive. If it was just a wham bam thank you ma'am, it is impressive that you would
Yeah,
remember
this
who
the
that
story
person
is
is.
he was there at where she worked that night or whatever, and then her some of her friends, probably other girls that worked there, and because your friends, when you do that, you're probably friends with who you work with, or you hate each other's guts. Could go either way. And then whoever he went out with, like he could have gone out with his people. He was a rookie. He could have had like family. You're a rookie. You bring your family and boys to come out to party with you, or you're with the other players. So there's other people here. They're all partying all together, and they meet a bunch of girls and move forward. It's like a thing. Like, what was that girl's name? Who was that you were talking
Yeah,
to?
that's what that's why I was trying to figure. That's the questions that I have. I mean, because if that's all I did and I was partying, y'all, there's no way in the world that I'm gonna remember all those people who I was partying with unless they were really in, my 2 to 3. But if it's just a bunch of us every weekend going out partying, I don't think I could be able to recall somebody who's that I'm kicking in. And if we're in the back seat of the 2017 Yukon GMC
And you're a
Yukon,
face that everybody knows because you're already a college star. Now you're a rookie
right?
deal. You're playing for the Cowboys. And you're probably, if you're going out, everyone's going to be a Cowboys fan if you're at a Dallas or
Exactly.
Planos, whatever, but still. So you're the one that everybody recognizes. Like, sometimes when that's the case, you don't recognize everybody that's surrounding you, even though everyone surrounding you knows who you are.
Who knows who
Right?
you are? Right, right.
Yeah. So,
Mm.
but yeah. Wait, when did this happen again? So February 2nd, 2017, allegedly, was when they're saying. So it would have been, I wonder. Yeah.
That would have been
I
around
wonder what the
Super Bowl
timing of the
time.
season. Yeah.
That would have been around Super Bowl time, the February 2017. So he played from 2016 to 2017 at Dallas. Because sorry y'all, February would have been around the time that late January, early February is like Super Bowl time.
So this season was over then.
Right.
Because he wasn't in the Super Bowl. So let's see. Let's finish out
From,
with this little bit
I
from
have no
them.
idea who you're talking about, to, oh, by the way, I do, and we had consensual sex, is just completely beyond me.
What else did I not ask the two of you that you would want to touch on?
I think we've basically covered most of it, but we just want to reiterate that about the narrative. We do not want this narrative to be.
You shouldn't be saying you want the narrative to be a certain way. You shouldn't say you want the narrative to switch in your favor. You should be saying they have a narrative, maybe, if you want to use that line of argument. But then you should say, oh, we have the truth. This is the story that, like, she's coming forward. We're telling the facts. You don't want to come out and say, we want the narrative to be this way. Because that sounds like what you're coming off with is just a narrative.
Us having to be on the defensive, and we're gonna fight this back no matter how much they try to bully us.
So they
If you
played
could,
the Super Bowl that year in Houston. In Houston.
What was the date of the Super Bowl? Are you on like something that says the date of the game?
I was trying to figure. Hold on. Let me go back. I got it. I had it. I just February.
Barbara says Houston is very much not Dallas.
I imagine. Let me see. February 5th. I think it's when they played. Go back. I think it was February 5th, but don't quote me. Yeah, February 5th, 2017.
So February 2nd, 2017 was the Thursday.
Okay. And so
that's an interesting time of the week. So that obviously wouldn't have been Super Bowl time period anyway.
Yeah. See, these are just those little bitty questions you ask. So everybody should have been in Houston. He was he. Okay. I'm just keep going. Now this is Dak's attorney, correct?
Yeah, there's going to be two, but they're interviewed separately. And I think this is the same guy that represented Michael Irvin. So
tell us about this lawsuit that you have filed on behalf of Dak Prescott.
Okay, so today we filed a lawsuit on behalf of Dak Prescott. In short, Dak has
So this must be Monday they're interviewing him.
found himself the subject of a $100 million extortion plot. A woman is making up allegations from a brief interaction she had with Dak Prescott over 7 years ago. And in return for her silence and her agreeing to not press what I believe to be false criminal charges, she's asked Dak to pay her $100 million. Let me tell you what's so important about this. All of the civil causes of action she could have, and so that people at home understand, there's civil lawsuits that seek money, there's criminal lawsuits that seek punishment. All of the civil causes of action she could have to seek money, the statute of limitations is run. It's 5 years. So for her to demand money now, the only reason she could be demanding it is to not press criminal charges. To go further, and I've provided you with a copy of the letter, what we believe is the extortion letter, asking Dak to pay this money by a certain deadline. I also had a telephone conversation with her attorneys, wherein her attorneys confirmed to me that the only reason they could possibly have to request money from Dak Prescott was for them to not come forward and bring, again, what we believe are patently false criminal charges. This is a problem for all survivors of sexual assault. To allow somebody to exploit our system like this just for monetary gain undermines everything that I think the Me Too movement has been doing. Mr. Prescott says in his pleading that all of the money he receives, if any, from this lawsuit, he is going to donate to the survivors of actual claims, as opposed to a false claim like this.
So they actually did meet. They met, they talked, they hooked up, or whatever happened.
He didn't meet her. He did not do the things that it says in her petition, but yes, he had a relationship with her. She was a waitress at a bar he frequented. She came out one night with a group of friends and had met Mr. Prescott, and then spent a evening where they went to numerous locations. She happens to allege, as you'll see in the letter, one of the locations in the middle is where she says that the sexual assault occurred. Mr. Prescott remembers the night, remembers going out and spending time with her and her friends, but obviously nothing even close to along the lines of what she's alleging here happened.
And I hate to ask, but did they have sexual intercourse, or was it consensual in any way?
He did not have sexual intercourse with her. I don't know. We all were in high school, and I think he was a single guy at the time, and I would call it a makeout session, is what occurred.
Okay,
Why
so
do you
they
think she's
did
coming
something
forward
but
now?
didn't go all the
Well, she has
way.
100 million reasons to come forward now. I think that's the only reason she's coming forward now. I think maybe what has driven the 100 million reasons is she recently got engaged, and I think her fiance, he's not a named defendant in this lawsuit, but I think he's an integral part in why this is happening now so many years later.
Had she ever made these allegations to Dak? Had she ever contacted him prior to this?
She had never contacted him prior to this letter. They did have interactions for a few years. He'd seen her places, and they always had very pleasant, amicable interactions. It completely came out of the blue when he got this
Interesting.
letter. He didn't remember at first who this person was, had to do a little digging to dig it up. He goes, oh yes, I certainly remember her. So it just completely came out of nowhere.
This reminds me a little bit of the other case that we interviewed about involving Jerry Jones. Do you think that sometimes there's just this shakedown of high-profile, especially athletes, and someone like Jerry Jones?
There are great pros and cons with celebrity. There's no doubt. And I would never sit here and ask for anyone's.
Oh yeah, Hey Pam. Oh, I think you're muted. Are you trying to be muted? Did I mute you? I can't hear you if you're trying to be heard.
You hear me now?
There you go. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
No, I was just waving at Blue Queen TV. She came in.
Oh,
That's
hold on.
all.
Hey Blue. We're looking at you missed the other interviews, but now we're on Dak Prescott's attorney speaking here. But yeah, it was interesting that they ran into each other a few times. I was like, oh, interesting. But then I'm like, well, if you're a sport person and the chick works in nightlife where people frequent, it's not that unusual. So let's see what else he's got to say.
Tears over someone having to be a celebrity. As they say, millionaire problems, celebrity problems. Yet, one of the downsides of celebrity or of wealth is obviously that people use our court system, our media system, to try to enrich themselves at the expense of people that didn't do anything wrong. It's a clear case of what's happening here.
And Dak felt so strongly that he wanted to sue before she filed any kind of.
I'm very glad you asked that. So I am proud of Dak. One of the things that I think inspired Dak here is he just had a daughter. He is a strong advocate against sexual violence, domestic violence, any kind of violence against women. he feels like that giving in to attempts like this actually take away from the credibility of real survivors. I actually have Jim Falk here with me today, who was many years a prosecutor with the district attorney's office, to kind of speak to how this actually distracts from real survivor stories and real survivors' ability to get justice.
Can you get the FBI or someone involved on extortion to investigate this woman, or have you?
So we've already contacted local law enforcement.
So
They
contacted law enforcement before they come do this interview. So that's a big distinction from the other way around.
Right.
opened an investigation into this. Their investigation is not complete because obviously we were given a short time frame before we heard the false criminal charges would be coming. So we came forward and Mr. Prescott came forward first before the investigation is complete. Obviously we would have loved to allow that to play out, but yes, there's already an investigation open, and I'm sure that you guys will have whatever
So
access
they
so
may
you
have
get freedom of
opened it. Am
information.
I understanding? Did you catch that? So, okay, demand letter was January 14th, and they said you have 30 days to respond and give us this $100 million, or we're going to file criminal charges against you, Dak Prescott, because the civil statutes run up. We're going to tell the public and file these charges. But here he just says, the investigation was already going, but we were on a short time frame. We ran out of time, so we also filed this lawsuit because her time was coming up.
Right.
So it seems like they might have filed...
First.
I'll have to double check the dates, but it seems like they may have filed a criminal complaint way earlier, not just like Monday or Friday that just passed. They may have filed it back in February when that 30 days was going to run up. So that's interesting too. Just a little bit.
Act or whatever they will provide you. So yes, we have contacted law enforcement about this.
And what is Dak seeking in his countersuit? Or
We don't have a specific number. I mean, if the jury finds that $1 is sufficient, again, Dak Prescott is not going to take a dime of this money. That's very important. If they think $1 is a symbol sufficient, if they think it's $100 million since that's what she asked for, I obviously leave it up to the jury.
When you look at Dak Prescott, you know him. I mean, he was Walter Payton Man of the Year last year.
Right.
By all accounts, everyone that talks about Dak that's around him says that, I mean, he loved his mom. He's always. Would this be out of character for Dak Prescott?
It would be beyond out of character. Dak Prescott is one of the finest human beings I've ever met. He's somebody that I have a son here that works for me now at the law firm. I would be proud for him to emulate Dak Prescott in everything he does. I think that that's one of the reasons that they realized that they could press the money button on his image. A lot of people would be scared to defend themselves in the way Dak is because they don't even want these kind of things being said about them. And of course, Dak doesn't want them being said, but anybody who knows Dak or anybody who's spending time with him knows these allegations have got to be false. And so he's kind of taking a stand for some of the folks who might be hesitant to actually come forward and call these people on their bluff.
So you've done a lot of these types of cases where you were prosecutor.
So this is also Dak's attorney, but another one. Pam, do you have thoughts on Levi McCowarth as an attorney, what he just said?
He gave me more plausibility because I was like, why would you come on here and allege somebody did something to you and you haven't filed a lawsuit? But they're talking like, we filed this law. We went to the police. We talked to the police. After we talked to the police, we did this. So I want to hear what she has to say. But I'm feeling a little bit better about how they are presenting themselves versus Samson and Delilah back there.
Prosecuting sex offenders. When you look at this case, what do you think?
I mean, so I was a prosecutor and handled violent and sexually violent offenses for almost 18 years. And so I come into every case with kind of that lens of believe her.
And I think
right?
this is important to say that we are going to have a woman advocating. There's a symbolic importance there.
And also, too, she's someone who has been on that side of advocating for those that have been
The
essayed
victims.
victims. So she has a perspective of how these cases are going to play out. So let's hear what she got to say.
Right? Because that is what we should be doing societally. But the moment that I was brought into this case and the moment that I read the demand letter, it gave me great concern. I recognize the courage that it takes for survivors to come forward, whether that's coming forward to a friend, a therapist, police, whoever it is, when they come forward. And these types of cases, so specifically an extortion attempt for $100 million on a high profile, high visibility local kind of hero in our community, they truly do undermine all of the progress that we have made societally in that Believe Her movement.
What was it that gave you, obviously, the $100 million? What was it?
Now,
that
she didn't call it Me Too. She called it Believe Her movement. That, I am going to pin that. Because I think that's a, Me Too movement sounds like it's gender neutral, but it really did become, there was a section of that movement that made it seem like it's a believe all women unequivocally. And here she's calling it not a Me Too movement, but a Believe Her movement. That's interesting. What do you think about that, Pam?
I'm sorry. I got my
Oh, that's
mind.
okay. We'll keep playing.
Keep
Major
playing.
red
I'm
flag.
I
sorry.
mean, for me, really, it
That's
was just
okay.
the blatant wording in the extortion letter. I recognize every victim's right and opportunity to have legal counsel, and they should, whether it is through a prosecutor, whether not directly their lawyers, but still obviously advocating on their behalf, whether it's lawyers like us helping sexual assault survivors as they go through this trauma. The letter that Dak and we received says expressly, we will forego pursuit of criminal charges. We will forego publicity in exchange for such an extreme amount of money. That phrasing in and of itself pauses me immediately. It's been 7 years, and I recognize that survivors do not come forward immediately, but for her to come forward in this manner is what tells me, coupled with our client's vehement denial that he has ever committed any sort of not consensual or sexual assault, that really is what tells me that this is an extortion attempt. That is it.
So typically, when you have a victim that does finally decide to come forward, would they not come forward to law enforcement? The statute's not up here, obviously.
Yes, that is what most victims do. I think really, if you look at all the studies on it, most victims, if they don't come forward almost immediately or in the kind of near vicinity near time right after the actual assault occurs, they may really, the first adults that they tell is a friend or a partner or a therapist. And their support network is who kind of encourages them to do the right thing and to go to the police to hold the offender accountable. Prisons were made, in many people's view, for sexually violent offenders. And so going to the police to report a crime is what should be done. Whether that crime is sexual assault or that crime is extortion, the police are who it should be reported to.
And to your recollection, I mean, she didn't get a rape kit. She didn't, as far as you know, never made these allegations towards Dak prior to this or anything like that, which typically a rape victim might do.
Correct. As far as we know, there is nothing outside of her story or her narrative, and her legal team's pushing this forward through their extortion letter.
We were told always believe the victim, and then you're like the bad guy if you say, well, we don't believe you.
I think this guy in the middle must be the guy Jim that was mentioned. There was a Jim, I don't remember, but he did mention this guy with me here today. So this must be this guy in the
So
middle.
you're kind of caught between a rock and a hard
And
place.
hold on, Tracker had was it Tracker? Who said the cowboy blue? Barbara said they are wearing cowboy blue. Look at this panel.
Exactly. I see it.
Oh,
I know, but just like Levi said, I mean, I am proud of our client for coming forward and being a public face in this, because honestly, I think that it would be easier for him to just throw some money at it and get a non-disclosure. I think that's what many people do because they don't want kind of the tarnish that this can bring and the spotlight that it can bring, and that publicly saying this is a false claim. But it is important because that really is the balance to the false claims that then undermine the legitimacy of kind of our progression societally.
They're wearing they're America's team. You said they got the red tie, the white shirt, and the blue jacket. Yeah.
yeah, that was so funny because Barbara called that out like before all three were on the screen. And I know they had a lot of comments. I'm going to work backwards on them. So hold on. Blue Queen TV says that the Young Turks, I'm assuming, right? TYT, the Young Turks, had a little commercial, and you're calling it a lil commercial. That would just say just believe women. So what was it, just like a screen? Like a blank, like a gray screen, like a Got Milk, and it would just say just believe women.
Women. Well,
that's rough. Like that seems so unfair to anyone that's not a woman.
well, that's
Daisy says, oh, sorry, Pam, go ahead.
that's it sounds good, but I think that you should believe the information that's given, because a lot of times when we say that, we're twinging people's emotions. There's always that twing of someone's emotion instead of looking at our logic and asking questions. Because look how up them the cat. See, I'm the person that doesn't know about as Tracker would say, first came the birds and the bees, Pam. But I don't know nothing about in the car and how you would position all of this stuff in the car. So I'm learning information. But if you believe all women, you'd be listening to me thinking to believe me with some information that I don't know anything about. So no, I don't believe in believe all women, but I do think you should allow them to speak and then do an investigation and then come to your conclusion at the investigation, and not put yourself out there or make how some people try to make you pick a side before you have all the information, and when you don't pick a side, they get mad at you.
Like, oh, how could you stand with an abuser? And it's just like,
again,
just ask
it's
what
all these
happened.
emotions. Because like you said, I need more information, and I need to see the totality of the information. I need to ask the questions, and then once I've been satisfied that okay, this makes sense to me, then I'll make my conclusion about how I'm going to do something. It's just not, that's just like well, never mind. Never mind.
No, but I agree. I mean, you need to be open-minded to it and be thoughtful about it. Don't just
Right.
be a sponge that takes in everything either. I don't think that that's the appropriate. If you think something has merit, then decide I believe this.
Yeah. Because when you all
Like,
said that believe her movement, because I didn't know where it was come from. You know what the first thing my mind went to? You remember when Blabette was on X and that you all were talking about this quote unquote ring of women who were going around accusing people and
I call it crowdsourcing. Me too,
yes,
crowdsourcing.
I thought about that and I was like, oh, believe that must be
Yeah.
is that
Yeah, that's a good call out. And that's a reference to Effie. I never remember her last name. Efrina, something Renosa. She accused Army Hammer of SA, and she had made a statement to Blabette. I think her name on YouTube is Babette. She has both. It interchanges. But Blabette was pushing back on her asking questions one day, and then Effie goes out and says, I'm the one who went to Cheyenne Roundtree myself and brought this information about the other people that have experiences with Jonathan Majors. And we have a community. We have a community of people that, as Pam said, they go around and they look for these high profile instances where someone's being accused, and they go and try to find more past experiences to kind of amp the numbers up. So, oops. But yeah, so that's what we're speaking of. Like, that's out there. Someone's proudly proclaiming it. So, and then I think we had, let's see, scrolling up, working backwards. I had this up. I wonder if the new fiance of the accuser is somehow involved in this. So Daisy, if you came in, I don't know when you came in, and Pam may have missed this, but Pam, in the beginning of Victoria Shores, her interview, she is saying, she mentions her fiance a little bit, and then they talk about it a little bit more a few minutes later. But she starts to say things like, I think you came in right when they talked about how they had to go to counseling together. Right? Were you here already for that?
I didn't hear any of that.
So she's engaged now. But she was describing, oh, this incident had affected me. I couldn't let my boyfriend touch me, which sounds like what you would expect, right? You could have an issue with intimacy, physical touch. But she's like, I was angry and it wasn't angry at him. Okay, irritability could make sense. But it started to get so descriptive to the point where the things that she was saying, she seemed weepy and was also trying to say that she was strong and that she needed to go to therapy and have a counselor. And some of that just seems like maybe you have certain things you need to deal with that make you treat your fiance a certain way. And now you're using something that you've hyperbolized to an excuse to excuse your behavior around someone. So if you have an issue because you just got rejected, there wasn't actually SA, but there was something consensual and you felt some type of issue over the rejection from whatever happened back in February of 2017. Fast forward to now, you're engaged and you're getting into fights constantly. Well, if you've already hyperbolized some type of regret or shame and retrofitted it backwards to something that happened that someone didn't want to enter a committed relationship with you after the fact, and you're in a new relationship and you're about to get engaged, and you have emotional instability, and now you're saying all that emotional instability is caused by somebody else. You're going to believe me, my fiance. I know you're going to try to be supportive because you're not going to come out and say, you want to support me, you love me. You're not going to come out and say, well, that doesn't make sense. So the fiance says, well, we should try doing some counseling together. And it seems like she independently also started doing her own therapy. But at the same time, all of that could just be because you have emotional stability issues that you're now attributing to something that you've hyperbolized.
Right.
And now you're using it to justify your behavior towards someone else in the future. Behavior you're still engaging in. So there's two sides of that, right? Some people you could say, oh, that would corroborate. If you need to go get therapy, if it's affecting your emotional stability, if you have trouble with intimacy, that corroborates the fact that you're dealing with trauma from something that happened to you.
Right.
But there's a flip side to that. There's a flip side. And maybe the fiance is like, well, look, you need to do more because this counseling isn't stopping your instability that I'm facing.
Right.
So,
I oh no, this is a lot. For me, this is a lot because I'm coming in it almost kind of halfway blind, and I'm just flabbergasted. You have two people out here claiming to sending out a letter, a demand letter, knowing that the demand letter had no basis in the basis because it's 2 years too late. That demand letter should have been, if you're attorneys now, you should know that the statute of limitations, and they did, that the statute of limitations is over. And so what else would this be? And then I'm just looking at the amount. And he's like, well, what type of amount would you think that?
I liked it was spicy,
You're
but
asking for
when
more than
Levi
you can afford.
McCathern, when he says here, he said she has 100 million reasons to lie.
Right.
He said, let's focus on the number. Let's highlight the number because the number is going to raise red flags.
I'm now, do not get me wrong. I know people sue and they sue for things, but I'm just, how are you suing somebody for more than what they actually have?
Read Trekker's comment.
You
You
know,
know that when I first met my fiance, we thought about blackmailing a few people just to get that little nest egg fund going.
because
See,
she
that's
has
the
a
point,
fiance.
guys.
Yeah.
You gotta care about your retirement. You don't want to be like Nathan Wade, who's in his 40s and apparently has no assets, no retirement funds, no stocks, nothing put aside to vestige his future. You don't want to be that. So, by any means necessary, get off that
And
paycheck to
especially
paycheck
if you made as
lifestyle.
much money. What was he charging? $500 some an hour?
For the Cobb County stuff, oh my god, I can't get over that. Don't get me started on that.
$500? That's why you was able to go to balling in Aruba and California.
Yeah, I think with Fani, that the special contract that was $250 an hour.
Okay.
But Cobb County, he was making $550, and that was apparently an appointment under Sonia Allen, who he was also messing with. So,
Oh, he's got a thing for district attorneys.
but what did he say? Fani said, "Oh, women are just like you can't do anything except make me a sandwich." But yet he has a type that is not the "I want to stay at home and make sandwiches" type. So isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say something, but I'm gonna keep my mouth closed on that.
Oh, so Daisy, the baby was just born on February 29th. Holy moly.
That
Okay, so
baby.
extortion letter, because I'm assuming, I don't follow this, but I'm assuming when Dak's current girlfriend is pregnant, right? The news probably broke about that, 6 months when you're like your fourth trimester, that's like public. But everyone was probably aware of that by the time this January extortion letter was sent over to Dak that she was pregnant. And then at that point in time, she would have been like 7.5, 8 months by the beginning of January. So that's, oh my gosh, this was a lot, guys. When I first saw this, it's actually my boyfriend that was like, did you hear about the Dak news? Because he's big into sports. Oh my gosh, he could lay out statistics better than any of the sports analysts out there. He's like, did you hear? He knows, like, I like to do stuff like this. He's like, did you hear about what's going on with Dak? And he was explaining it, and I was pulling it up, and I was like, oh, this is good. I can just we'll run through this thing. Then I see these interviews, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot in 1 week already. A lot. And then had a baby, saw the baby, and went, that should have been me. Lessons learned, don't, and especially, okay, so let's actually pull this back up. So Daisy is saying the girlfriend just had a baby born. So not married, not wife. Now, that's scorn. If you think about that, if people are already upset that they weren't chosen, and somebody else is, it could have been intentional, it could have been unintentional, but they're having a baby, they're agreeing to have the baby's coming. Maybe it's a Texas thing because they are in Texas, but they're rich. I'm sure they could find a way around it if they wanted to. I'm not going to go into that topic, but they are in Texas, to be fair. But this baby's been born. And if you're a scorned person that wanted that life to be yours, and you see that another woman is the one that gets to have a baby by someone that you felt rejected by, that instant is a big moment. If that's the feeling, there's scorn there.
But again, I need to know about this relationship that you would have to feel this way. In my head, if this was going on, I'd feel some kind of way about this if maybe a year and a half ago, all of this kind of rolled around for me. Me, after 5 or 6 years, I have moved on to the next fool. That's just me. But I'm just trying to figure out, you feel you feel this strongly about this man for 6, 7 years, but you've moved on to a new person where you have a fiance, and now you see in the news that this man has thing, and that brought all of this back to you. I'm interested in that. I'm interested in that story right there. What's really going on?
Because you're seeing it all the time, and you send this letter saying you don't want to go talk about it. But now you suddenly want to talk about it. I'm telling guys, so my big takeaway in this video, and I have my questions, I have my speculations. I obviously think that things look more favorable for the claim that this is extortion, that this is defamation. That's my personal opinion. But one thing I will say unequivocally is I don't feel like I have concerns about what Dak's attorney said in this interview. I'm not concerned that it's going to come back to bite them in the butt. I have a few questions like, what was the new timeline? They ran into each other a couple times over the course of a couple months. But then it's not that weird when you think that she's in nightlife and he's a celebrity that goes out. But the other interviews, not just with Victoria Shores, but the attorneys, especially the attorneys, way more than Victoria Shores. I think there were like 8 or 9 times where I paused this video and I was like, don't, guys, not legal advice, but don't do videos like this when you have ongoing litigation pending or an investigation pending. There's like four different pathways that these interviews can come back to bite.
You know, Barbara
These
is
people.
unhinged right now. Barbara is unhinged right now. And you
He
tell
didn't
me-
give her a credit card like Jonathan Majors.
No, but go back to that last comment.
Damn.
She says, and you tell it to a lonely guy at your bar who ends up being a lawyer who hates Dax and tells you that that you now could be a case.
Talking about, because this guy, the Facebook posts say he's a Cowboys fan, but hates Dak Prescott and thinks he's the reason the Cowboys keep losing. That is the attorney. They surfaced his Facebook post, apparently. That's the attorney representing Victoria Shores in her extortion letter. I feel an inclination to say in her case against, but that's not what the situation is. This started because they sent an extortion letter.
Wow.
He wasn't representing her in a case against. He wasn't representing her in a case being brought against her. It started with an extortion letter. And then it turns out he hates Dak Prescott.
Could you put that extortion letter back up if you still have it?
Yeah. I've got it up. Let me go down. It was an exhibit here. So that's here. And you can see the email went to where he went to college. There's an email here that says it's redacted, but it's like blurred at athletics.mssstate.edu. So they sent an electronic email with the college, which I thought was weird. Because I wonder if they're trying to say like it doesn't make sense.
Right now he plays for the Cowboys. Why wouldn't you send it to him?
Well, and when this happened, he was already signed by the Cowboys. So even if this is like, oh no, she wanted to make this claim many, many years ago. That's why this was an old header. She said she didn't want to send it. He wouldn't even have been in college still at that point. He was already signed with the Cowboys in the NFL.
Well, why would you?
So, and they called this out. I'll pull back down to this letter, but they called it out at the very beginning. It was on like page 1, maybe page 2. Bizarrely, the correspondence was addressed to a third party at Mississippi State University, where Mr. Prescott attended college. So they call it out. But yeah, this is the extortion letter back down here. Pam? Wait, are you frozen, Pam? Or are you thinking? Oh my God, you're not stunned. Stop!
I mean, see, I'm like, why would you send it to Mississippi State? Mississippi State has nothing to do with that. He was playing.
Well, I think that gives more weight. So we'll keep this here. We can go right back down to this exhibit, but a quick look. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, civil conspiracy, because it's the attorneys helping here. They're the defendants, because they're all named, are engaging in a conspiracy to do all of this. But they also say tortious interference with current and or prospective business relations. And I'm wondering if that's why you're emailing it to a college that you're emailing someone. I'm not going to tell anybody anything if you
But
give me
you
this $100 million,
emailed.
but we also send it to a college. Why would you ever get that email address and plop it up on there?
I'm stumped. I don't understand that. That makes no sense to me. Because you see me, I'm
So
just
I think, but it's important because you have this defamation, and if she was just in this extortion letter, you couldn't really say, you could call it extortion, but it'd be different to say it was tortious interference. But now you have something where everything you're alleging here was actually public on January 14th when you disseminated this email to this university. Because at first when I saw this, I was like, well, if this is a private extortion letter, yeah, that sounds like it's extortion. I get that. But how would it be defamation if nobody knew about it until you went and filed? Because either she was going to come forward and press criminal charges and that would make it news. But if that didn't happen yet, how are you going forward with defamation per se and tortious interference? But it's because I think this whole extortion letter went out to a university. So
okay. Okay. I
incompetence? It could be incompetence. It could really be incompetence. It's weird,
I'm
bizarre
almost sorry
incompetence.
that I asked to watch this. You're gonna have to send this to me because now I got to read it. Now I have to.
Yeah.
Read it. Because I have really got to go through it and read it because that makes no sense to me already.
Well, you've got a second thing for your shenanigans show. But yeah, the defamation and slander and everything. So it's a lot, guys. Let me look at these comments. Tracker and Barbara have been so funny. Daisy also pointed out a good point. You know, it could be with this fiance, maybe she has fights with her fiance because he's not Dak. Some type of like internalization where, you know, she's not yelling at him like, you're not Dak, but she's lashing out because there's just like, it could be something that she's not even realizing on the surface, that she has some type of resentment. Like, it's a real thing that it happens in relationship dynamics. And Daisy expands, like, if she feels slighted by Dak, now that she's with her current fiance, he has to bear the brunt of her being rejected by Dak. And that's a real thing. Let's see. He only hates Dak Prescott now. He wanted a Yukon when he was younger. Are we talking about the attorney? See, that's why sometimes if I don't read comments right away, I get lost. And then why wouldn't he send it to the team that he currently works for and not the yeah. So let's see. Pam, do you have any closing thoughts? Yeah, go ahead.
Does anybody know where Dak Prescott's girlfriend is from? I'm just looking at her.
I mean, it says in the claim that she's I think Collin County, right? Let me go back up here. She's currently a resident of Texas.
Okay, I just want to know.
Okay, so they said defendant Shores is an individual residing in Texas, and her address is redacted out here. So was her address on this exhibit?
I'm talking about the girlfriend that he had the baby with.
Oh, I think because he lives in Texas, they probably have a house there. Or do you mean, are they like, have they been dating a long time? Is that the question?
Right, because I'm just trying to see that, you know. Here's where the reason why I asked that question, because you were talking about how she was talking about that's not Dak, he's not Dak, and I'm trying to see, did she and the girlfriend on some level at some point maybe hung in the same circles or around the same circles?
Yeah.
And now
oh my god, and you got Chose. Hold on, let's pull up page 6, because page 6 always has the celebrity relationship tea. So this was 3 hours ago. Dak Prescott's a dad. Sarah Jane Ramos was born on... Oh, girlfriend is Sarah Jane Ramos. Well, we're going with 3 names, so that sounds like she's going to look like a model. Let me see. Let's look up Sarah Jane Ramos. Anything else about her? Does she have like an Instagram?
I'm just curious, you know, that would...
Hold on, there's a people that's just who is.
Okay.
Oh my god, ads. Let's see. They announced November 2023 that they were expecting their first child. I'm going to open that article in the background. They were enjoying a meal together for her birthday, her 30th birthday in November. Him and his previous ex-girlfriend, they broke up in 2022. She went to FSU. She's very pretty.
Okay, so she might not have.
She's raised in Tampa Bay.
Okay. All
She's
right.
on Twitter. Oh my God, did she say something?
No, at first my mind went, I thought maybe she was probably from Texas, and my mind went that I wonder if this this woman and the woman who was accusing him had followed in the same circle some kind, but no, she's not even from there.
She's now a wine and spirits specialist, which does seem like, when you're a party girl, there does seem to be some type of pathway where you get into something like that. So it's possible. Let's see if we go back.
I'm a wine and spirit specialist, maybe individually, but I'm a wine and spirit
I feel like I've seen this specific picture before. Maybe this was around the time where, no, that was August. That picture looks familiar. Maybe that's just a popular pose that people take.
probably.
This kind of looks bartendery.
But she's into wine and spirits.
She's got a jet picture here. Got to fly this
Thank
baby
you, Tracker.
yesterday.
That was my point, because Tracker said wine and spirit specialist means bottle service, because I'm too old to be.
Yeah, I mean that could be.
I was
Because
just
again,
curious if-
these pictures are 2017, so they'd be after. She doesn't have anything that. I mean, unless we can find out what the girl looked like, unless she's like in one of these pictures. I would imagine if that's the case, this girl went and if they did know each other, probably
Right.
went and deleted anything immediately.
Right. That's why
Yes, I don't think there's any connection there.
That's all I was
but there could be like they bumped into each other and weren't actually
That's
like
what I'm saying.
friends.
They because like she's saying that she's a wine and spirit specialist, and this girl is saying that she was a bartender / waitress. Could they have been in the same circles, and then she looks over and sees this girl who she probably thought wasn't quote unquote in her league, and now she's having a baby by Dak Prescott? You think that caused some issues? I know I'm reaching. This is, I mean, this is
I think she was doing distro work. She was doing I think this is more you bring it to the venues, and it could be, like they do the samples in the liquor stores and they have like a certain table set up, but the people that run and book the girls that run that type of stuff, that kind of seems like what this could be a description of.
Well, see right here, it says here, she says, go back up. It says after graduating, she had a career in hospitality as a bartender at Marriott hotels. And so, okay. So, I mean, they could have gone to a conference.
Oh my God. This is just a coincidence, but look at her younger sister's name. I'm tired of it. Oh my God. Oh, and her educational background is criminalistics and criminal science, so I bet she's ready to tear this accusation apart. Oh man.
Right.
First linked in September 2023. Wait, what? So they weren't like a public. They're first rumored to be together. So it's public that they're dating in September, and then it's public that she's pregnant in November. So the January extortion letter looks all the crazier. I don't know.
I'm just curious. My curiosity is like, this is a lot. See, first I'm stuck on the $100 million, because if you had said 150, 200, if you had said $2 million, that would have been something. I'm stuck on that. Then I ask about the Yukon and how much room and space and how the logistics. Then I turn around and then I hear the attorneys saying all this stuff, and they hadn't filed any charges. They hadn't done anything. They're just talking about this man. Didn't put allegedly or anything in front of that. That's already a red flag. And then my dumb butt asked, oh, can I see the extortion letter? And then you got Mississippi State on there when he wasn't even at Mississippi State when this happened. This is it's just like a series of just craziness that I don't even understand. And I'm scared.
Like, it could just be if the girl is credible and telling the truth, but her attorneys are delivering it in this way, they're like turning what could be a credible accusation into a steaming pile of, oh my God, what is this? A steaming shenanigan.
Right. It's just crazy. That's just, I'm perplexed. I'm confused.
Gotta get the pre-baby body back. And then hold on, wait. So Tracker says, so I guess now we have shotgun Instagram posts. So announcing that you're having a baby before you're actually married on Instagram.
Oh yeah.
Well, Pam, you know me, my cutoff, I am starving. I am very hungry. Any closing thoughts on this? And
Just send me that so I can look at it, so I can read it,
okay.
because now
I'll send you this and the interview. I'll send you this and the interview link.
Yeah.
Okay. And then guys, I'm gonna put it in the description as well, so you can go back and look at it and watch it. Shout out to that interview, by the way. That interview, the person doing the questioning was very I don't know, enticing, welcoming.
Right.
Got a lot of detailed responses out of certain questions.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll update the description. Pam, one more time, Pam Entertainment TV. I'll also put Pam's link in the description. You guys that are in here better all be subscribed to Pam already anyway. But with that being said, you said you don't know if you're doing it anytime soon. Is it going to be like this weekend? Do you think you might stream?
If I do it this weekend, a link in my community page and on my X page, aka Twitter, there will be a link. There'll be a flyer letting you
And
know.
if you follow me on X, I'll retweet, repost whatever that post. That way you guys can know. But obviously, if there's more notice and I see it, I'll make sure I share it and let everybody know.
So I'll give it. It'll at least be it'll be 6 hours before the event. So
hold on, Barbara. No, we don't need to do that. So we'll be up here. We'll have a fourth meal. And then Daisy has another comment here, one more, that says, when asked about criminal charges, she says, I mean, I do want him to suffer somewhat of how I suffered. So that's getting arrested, spending some time in jail if needed, then I want that. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting moment. And Pam, I think you weren't here yet for that part. So you're going to watch, watch that interview and you go all the way back. You're going to be like,
I'm going to watch it. Because
that's a great call out there, Daisy.
This is crazy. This is crazy.
Right, so we're sending Pam off with the homework tonight for the rest of us, and let us know your thoughts on it. You guys, thanks so much for coming in here and looking at the details, because throughout this chat, you guys have always done like great humor and great insights, but we got to correct some stuff that we were getting wrong, and we figured out a lot in the process, and I love that. And Nathan Moore, thanks for joining too. Good night, Daisy, Tracker, Barbara, everybody who's still listening. Take care.
Bye.